ready to go. Bob, we'll turn it over to you.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining us. Good morning. I'd like to convene the meeting and call to order. The August 2022 Committee on Accreditation meeting is called to order. Will the staff please call the roll?
Jomaline Balatayo. Here.
Yeah, there is echo.
Augustine Cervantes.
Here.
Kathy Gracia. Katrina Tchaikovsky. Here. Charles Forbes. Here. Bob Fraley.
Here.
Lynn Hallis.
Here.
Mike Hillis.
Here.
Marty Martinez.
Here.
Jason Leah.
Here.
Gerard Morrison. Kevin Taylor.
Here.
Okay. Do we want to keep proceeding? Do we need tech support or should we just keep going?
Keep going and we'll get tech support.
All right. Thank you. First is logistics regarding the web meeting. This is a reminder we are conducting this in a hybrid fashion, virtually and in person, in accordance with the new law that was signed recently to amend Section 11133 of Section 20 Government Code pertaining to public meetings. A couple of reminders before we get started. As you see, some staff and most members are participating from their own locale and a few are in the commission office. The Zoom link toll-free number has been made available to the public and the public is free to join in person at the commission offices. Regarding Zoom identification, for those of you participating by video conference, please check your Zoom ID and be sure it contains your first and last name accurately so we're able to call on you appropriately and also so we get all the names accurately reported in the record. If you need to update your name, click on the three dots in the window with your picture to bring up the rename option. When it is time to take up an item, we will need a moment to bring the appropriate attendees into the main meeting room and make sure they can see and hear the committee, and we can see and hear them as well. Participants will need to turn on their camera and then unmute their microphone. Regarding microphones, to members of the committee, we are going to mute your microphones to eliminate any background noise that may get in the way of others hearing what is being said by the speakers. We ask that when you speak, you unmute yourself, but then please, once again, when you are done speaking, go back to being muted. Regarding commenting or asking questions, committee members, if you wish to make a comment, please either physically raise your hand on camera or use the raise hand feature, which is located at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And just keep in mind that because we're not in the meeting room, but we are on Zoom, we have members that are spread through several screens. So it might take some time to be sure that we get to everybody, but there will be a pause in between to be sure everybody is heard and seen. If you're unable to do any of those options, you can either send a message in the chat feature to signal that you have a question or a comment. Several of us will be looking for those with comments or questions in the chat and the raised hands, but please make sure we don't miss you if you have something to say. Because we are a public body and must conduct our business in the public forum, we ask that you please do not use the chat feature to make substantive comments or have discussions on any items. Public attendees of this meeting will not be able to see the chat box, and those who view the video archive of this meeting also will not have access to any conversations within the chat. Regarding motions and roll call vote, when you make your motions, please state the motion in full so that there is no question as to what the motion is. All votes will be conducted via roll call. Just before the vote, we will remind everyone to make sure you are unmuted so that we do not miss anyone's vote. If you are unable to respond via video or audio, you may make your own vote known through the chat feature, and we'll be looking for that. The secretary will have to read your name and your vote when she gets to that part of the roll call vote to be sure it's an official part of the record and to make sure the public knows what the vote is. Because this can be quite cumbersome, we want to leave that as a last option. And there's also time designated for general public comment at the end of the meeting. As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded, and after the meeting ends, the archived audio and video will be available via the Commission's website. Do committee members have any questions regarding the protocol? All right, seeing none at this time, I'd like to welcome our newest members of the committee, Augustine Cervantes, who comes to us from CSU Los Angeles, and Alan Hallis from Riverside County Office of Education. They were both selected to join the COA from the commission meeting at their April meeting. And we'd like to have them introduce themselves. So, Alan, would you like to go first? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to say I'm honored to be here and really excited to be part of this work. I've been in K-12 education for longer than I care to count, and it's just really exciting to be supporting all of the programs doing such great work and taking a look at what's going on in the field.
Great, and thanks for joining us and giving up your time. We appreciate it, and congratulations. Welcome aboard. Augustine.
Good morning, everyone. I'm also delighted to be here. I've worked in higher ed for approximately close to 20 years. Had the opportunity to work with private, proprietary, as well as public institutions. So with that array of experiences, delighted to be here and ready to learn and ready to contribute. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us, Augustine. We appreciate it. So again, congratulations to both of our members. We're looking forward to your contributions and input. And moving on to item 2, it's the approval of the August 2022 agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the August 2022 meeting? And just remember to unmute your microphone when speaking. Member Tchaikovsky?
Yeah, I move that we accept the agenda for this meeting.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Taylor. We'll now do a roll call vote, and we'll do individually one at a time. All in favor say aye, opposed say nay or no. Staff, will you please call the names?
Chomalene Boletayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Tchaikovsky,
Aye.
Charles Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're moving on to item 3. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 2022 meeting? It just as a reminder, be appropriate for any committee member who was not in attendance at that meeting to abstain. But before we do that, any member of the public wish to comment on the item? Looks like none at this point. So is there a motion by a committee member? Member Martinez, Co-Chair Martinez.
I motion that we approve the minutes of the June meeting.
Thank you. And is there a second? Second by Member Tchaikovsky. Will the staff please call the roll?
Chomalene Boletayo,
Abstain.
Augustine Cervantes,
Abstain.
Kathy Krisha, Katrina Tchaikovsky,
Aye.
Charles Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis,
Abstain.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Abstain.
Kevin Taylor.
Abstain.
Sounds like motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 4. Item 4 is the co-chair and member reports. Any members have anything you wish to report? Because you're all busy on your summer vacation. No worries. I don't want to hear what a glorious time you had in Fiji or Tahiti or anything like that, or Hawaii. Anyways, thank you. We're going to move on to item 5. Item 5 is the staff reports. We usually do staff reports in the morning here, but because we have a number of guests this morning, we're going to postpone this until the end of the meeting. So we're going to move on to item 6. And before we do item 6, just as a reminder, we do have the COA quick guide that was mailed to everyone. It's one that we use at all of our meetings. It has the accreditation decisions and the consequent institution activities. And it also has some details as to what all the verbiage and denial of accreditation and so forth, what it all means. So just be sure you have that handy as we go through our discussions throughout the day. Not that we'll need them necessarily immediately, but just so you have that available. But item 6 is program approval recommendations. This section is for action. There are 4 institutions with 4 programs for approval. We have representatives from the 4 institutions with us to answer any questions you may have about the proposed programs. And we'll take them one by one, and then we'll vote for each one individually. So the first one is United States University for a single subject and multiple subject intern pathway. Joining us today to answer any questions about the proposed new pathways for United States University are Dr. Joanna Simpson, Program Director, and Dr. Rebecca Wardlow, Dean of the College of Education. Are there any recusals on the item? All right, seeing none, will the institutional representatives like to say anything regarding the proposed program? No, do we have them with us?
Apparently, we don't have them in attendance.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, all right. So at this point, it's opportunity for the member of the public to wish to make any comment.
So we are now being joined by the institutional representatives.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We have the institutional representatives from United States University with us. Welcome. And we just introduced your item and just have an opportunity if you'd like to say anything about your proposed program.
We are in attendance. It was, and Dean Wardlow is also here. I'm not sure why we weren't showing to you guys, but this is our internship pathway for our multiple subject and single subject program. We are super excited to be able to offer this program to our partner districts who have really been needing some more teacher interns to help staff our schools.
Great, thank you. Dean Wardlow, would you like to offer any comments?
Just good morning, and thank you for having us in session with you. And what Dr. Simpson said, this is coming after many requests from superintendents and school principals, and of course our candidates as well.
Great, thank you. Much needed program, and thank you for joining us so early. Again, we'll give one opportunity for public comment. Is there any member of the public? All right, seeing none, this is an opportunity for committee members to have any questions or representatives for the United States University. Member Tchaikovsky.
Yes, hi, good morning. Thank you for bringing this forward. Obviously, as we've recently read, there's this acute need for teachers across our state and elsewhere. Just super fast, what additional support do you envision your interns needing beyond those traditional student teacher candidates that you support as well in your credential program? If you had to identify a couple of supports that you believe they're going to need right out of the chute, what would those be?
Thank you so much, Member Tchaikovsky, for the question. So I think the biggest support that we believe that we will need is to allow them to have a university supervisor throughout the length of their program. So they'll have a faculty member here at United States University that will help them supervise them, help them with their lesson planning and students. And we're also going to need that same support at the school site with a site supervisor throughout the length of their program, which I'm sure you're aware can be 2 years or more at times if necessary. I also feel that these particular students are just going to need more hands-on support from the staff here at United States University, because they're going to run into questions that our other students won't, right? Because they are in the classroom while they are going through their pedagogical courses. So I foresee them reaching out to our Office of Field Experience more often, as well as myself as the program director, just to get some clarification on how, for example, our lesson plan templates work in their particular school setting, and kind of things that may seem a bit silly, but it's very stressful when you're a new teacher, an intern teacher, trying to kind of make sure that everything coincides appropriately with your university and your school.
Yeah, thank you. That's hair on fire, intern teaching. So thank you for that.
It really is.
Okay, thank you. Any other member have any comment or question?
Yes, I had a question. I was reading your site, and thank you for submitting this. Definitely much needed. And in today's teacher shortage climate. There is, you listed there is no student teaching in the internship program. I'm assuming because they're a teacher of record, but are they still enrolled in units at the end of the program? Is that?
Yes, they are. So the interns actually, you can kind of look at this, Member Cervantes, as if they were in student teaching all throughout their program. So they have an internship course that goes alongside the pedagogy courses that provides them the same level of access as a teacher would to their university supervisor.
Gotcha. And your prerequisite courses are just the special ed and the English learning course. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Any other committee member have any question or comments? Okay, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the new intern pathways for United States University? So moved by, well, I guess, Member Tchaikovsky, would you please state the motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve United States University's request to add a single subject and multiple subject intern pathway.
Great, thank you. And is there a second? Second by Member Forbes. Will the staff please call the roll?
Romaline Bolatayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Tchaikovsky,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Franley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Simpson and Dean Wardlow. We appreciate your time and effort, and good luck with the program.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.
Absolutely. All right, moving up next is Merced County of Education, Merced County Office of Education for a preliminary multiple subject intern program. And joining us to answer any questions you may have about the proposed program for Merced County Office of Ed are Carla Paul, Intern Program Coordinator, and Marissa Lopez, Intern Program Coordinator. Are there any recusals on the item? I see none. Any member of the public have any comment you wish to offer?
No comments, Bob.
Thank you. So any committee members, well, actually, first at this point, we should ask the institutional representatives if you'd like to offer any comment or thoughts.
Good morning, Carla Paul, coordinator here at Merced County Office of Education, and my colleague.
Morning, Marissa Lopez, new coordinator here at Merced County Office of Education with the Multiple Subjects Program.
Yeah, we're excited to have Marissa join us, and we're excited to be here this morning to offer the multiple subject program.
Great. Thank you both for joining us. Any committee members have any questions or comments you wish to make? All right, seeing none, this will be a quick one. Is there a motion to approve the program for Merced County Office of Education? Member Forbes.
I move that we accept the proposed program for the Merced County Office of Education.
All right, so move. Is there a second? Second by Member Lee. Will the staff please call the roll?
Romaline Bolatayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Tchaikovsky,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Franley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Your motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for joining us, Carla Paul, Marissa Lopez. Thank you both for being here with us this morning, and good luck with the program.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to move on to the next one, which is from LA County Office of Education for a preliminary administrative services program. And joining us to answer any questions you may have about the proposed program for Los Angeles County Office of Ed are Danielle Mitchell, Division Director 3 for Curriculum and Instruction Services, Kate Francini. Did I pronounce that correctly? Great, thank you. Program Director 3 for Educational Leadership Programs, and Rebecca Summers, Coordinator 3 for Educational Leadership Programs. Are there any recusals on the item? All right, seeing none, any member of the public wish to offer any comment?
No comments, Paul.
Thank you. So at this point, we offer an opportunity for the institutional representatives to offer any comment or question.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd just like to say we're so excited to be here. Creating a PASS program has been 3 years in the making, and we're finally able to submit our application this year. Alongside me today, my supervisor, Danielle Mitchell, is online with us as well. She has been so instrumental in spearheading this, as well as my colleague, Dr. Rebecca Summers. This has been a need shared with us over the last few years from our local 80 districts, charter schools, and private schools. Could LACO, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, create the pathway from earning the PASS credential, the preliminary, to the clear credential? And so now this will solidify that pathway as being fused, and we're so excited to be here. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much for those comments. Appreciate it. Any member of the committee wish to offer any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the program for Los Angeles County Office of Education? Motion by Member Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I move that we accept the proposal from LA County Office of Education for Preliminary Administrative Services Program.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Hallis. Will the staff please call the roll?
Ayo.
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes.
Aye.
Katrina Tchaikovsky.
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Franley.
Aye.
Alan Hallis.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Jason Lee.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Mitchell, Ms. Franciscini, and also Dr. Summers. Thank you all, and good luck with your program. Moving on to the last program proposal, that's from National University for a bilingual authorization Spanish program. And joining us to answer any questions you may have about the proposed program for National University are Dr. Nilsa Thoros, Department Chair, and Dr. Claire Lancaster, faculty member. Are there any recusals on this item?
I will recuse.
We have one recusal, and that's Member Hallis. Is that correct? Yes. Any member of the public wish to offer any comment?
No comments, Paul.
Thank you. Any committee members? Well, actually, before the committee members, we'll offer the opportunity for institutional representatives to offer any comment or statement you'd like to make.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're very excited. Finally, we're here. We're very committed to offer this bilingual preparation program. And I would like Clara to share a little bit about our programs.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. And we are very excited to be here today after it's been a 2-year journey to come to you this morning. And so we are terribly excited. As you know, National University, we have a statewide blueprint. We will serve the state of California up and down, north, south, center. We are going to provide a bilingual, we have 3 pathways that we're going to provide. For either multiple subject candidates, single subject candidates, or education specialists. And those 3 pathways are a bilingual internship, bilingual student teaching, and post-credential pathway. So we will also be welcoming candidates who are already in service that are coming back to get their bilingual authorization. We know that there is a great shortage of bilingual teachers in the state. We are responding to the call. I myself, being a bilingual teacher for many, many years, this is an honor to be able to serve the state of California with the preparation of teachers for our multilingual, emerging bilingual, and English language learners. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you both. Any comments or questions from members of the committee? Member Tchaikovsky, and then Member Forbes.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for taking the effort to expand these opportunities to your candidates. As you said, California needs teachers and bilingual teachers in particular. And then to have these multiple ways, particularly post-credential, is really something that will help our state. So I just want to say thank you for putting the time into this proposal and into all the infrastructure that's required to support these really important candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I didn't mean to cut off the institution. Would you like to make a comment? I'm sorry, Dr. Thorson. I thought I saw you start to say something. No.
Well, I just wanted to say that our team is very committed to prepare teachers in the field. So this is a big day for us.
Member Forbes.
Well, first, I just wanted to say felicidades to the colleagues at National University. I know this has been a labor of love and a long time work. So it's clear that your program is now aligned with the current standards. But I was curious how you might be thinking about particularly that fieldwork component, because you had some clear assignments for fieldwork in each of the pathways, but how that fieldwork component may change as we move into the new standards next year that do require some more fieldwork. So if either of you would like to address that briefly, I think it could be helpful.
We have a plan for that. Clara?
So we definitely have a plan for that because as you know, Cheryl, Niels and I have both been involved from the ground up on the movement to the new bilingual program standards, as well as the new BTPs for the state of California. So we have been listening to the ground as providing support and guidance to the state in this new space. So we are going to definitely provide, Cheryl, for a transition plan that will allow us to align ourselves with the newly approved bilingual program standards that were approved in December 11th of 2021. And so we are in that space that is a creative space where we are looking at adding those minimal, 20 clinical practice hours that are going to be required for all our post-credential candidates. And we are being very creative about both on-ground as well as virtual bilingual clinical practice. As a matter of fact, we've done a couple of papers and research conference proposals on that topic because it is kind of new for us too. We're trying to enter into a new space where we have a lot of post-credential candidates coming back to us to get their bilingual authorization, having been in the field for years. And now we're asking them to do virtual bilingual clinical practice with some on-ground, on-site field bilingual practice components. So that will be part of the clinical practice. And then, of course, in the course embedded structures, we also have field experiences that are going to provide them opportunities to do also virtual observation of bilingual classrooms in dual language programs, 50-50 and 90-10 models, or other dual language immersion programs. And so that's all embedded within the course structure. But yes, our creative challenge right now is to figure out the transition piece to add those 20 hours of mandatory bilingual clinical practice that we didn't have in the past. So we're in that space right now.
Well, thank you. I think you have a clear foundation for it. And as Member Tchaikovsky also highlighted, we know how important that is for the current shortage. So thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you both. Are there additional comments or questions from the committee members? Member Cervantes.
Yes, thank you, Niels and Clara, for your proposal. Quick question just on modality and delivery model, considering you'll be doing both online and in person. Which components of your program are you particularly looking to do in person? Considering, I guess it's also a recruitment question. How are you going about identifying individuals to provide them the infrastructure for your university to be able to then support not only field work, but observation, supervision, et cetera?
So the structure of our university and the structure of our programs is primarily online. So most of our programs will be delivered through online modality. If there are situations or opportunities where we feel the need either in the bilingual clinical practice or otherwise to provide on-ground support, we will. But we are currently working through Go React, which is our virtual clinical practice platform, and we will continue to provide support to our candidates through online services, both for the coursework, for the foundations, the methods, both mainstream methods as well as bilingual methods, and the clinical practice. We are looking at those 20 hours of additional field work where there is a component for on-site bilingual clinical practice, and that will be obviously something that we'll be looking at implementing. But most of our program primarily is going to be delivered online.
Thank you, Member Tchaikovsky.
Well, the last question also made me think of a potential consideration for kind of bridging some of the isolation that some of these candidates might face, scattered throughout the state of California, is cohorting them somehow via either online or whatever in-person opportunities are regional, maybe in consultation with a mentor who also is one of your supervisors and an advocate for bilingual, bicultural, multicultural education, so that there's a community, virtual even, in which these bilingual candidates can find solidarity and support, and can work through some of the many contradictory practices that they may encounter, placement, master schedule, et cetera. So I think that's no doubt you've already thought about that, but just in case.
So we're providing an opportunity for PLCs, professional learning community, spaces for our bilingual candidates, our bilingual teacher candidates, and that will occur within the context of the bilingual clinical practice seminar. That seminar will have a duration of about 4 months, and there will be a space for the students to connect with each other in PLCs, bilingual PLCs, as well as it is my responsibility to obviously hire bilingual university support providers, bilingual site support providers, and I will very intentionally create, as a program director, a community of practice among the support providers, both the university support providers and the site support providers, to be able to provide that space. As a matter of fact, in conversation with Nilsa, who is currently here as my chair, we were talking about the fact that we do need to differentiate for the needs of the bilingual teacher candidates, and therefore there will be courses that are strictly for bilingual teacher candidates, so there will be a space for cohorting some of their experiences, both in the methodology coursework as well as in the bilingual clinical practice, both regular for student teaching and internship and post-credential. So we are already thinking about that piece, because you're absolutely right that there has to be a support space for the bilingual candidates to feel that they're not out there completely by themselves, because we know how critically in some spaces bilingual education or bilingual immersion or dual language education is highly political. So we need to be able to provide that support for our candidates. And we're already looking at creating a statewide advisory board that will have representation of stakeholders across the state that will help us as well direct our support community for our bilingual teacher candidates, who in many cases are vulnerable, and in some parts of the state, they might experience additional challenges.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from committee members? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to approve National University for the bilingual authorization in Spanish? Member Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I move that we approve National University's proposal for bilingual authorization in Spanish.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Member Taylor. Staff, please call the roll.
Jomeline Boletayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Tchaikovsky,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis. Alan?
He ready to recuse himself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Thorsos and Dr. Amador. You know, you're commenting this is a long journey up to this point. Yes, and now you're off to a new chapter on the journey. So best wishes moving forward.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8 for time. Item 8 is the initial program approval for new program sponsors, Santa Maria Bonita School District. Consultant Dr. Michelle Williams-George will introduce the item, and joining her today to answer any questions you may have are institutional representatives Jennifer Loftus, Director of Teaching and Learning, and Shelley Hart, Program Specialist for Teacher Development. Does anyone need to recuse himself?
I need to, Bob.
Thank you. Member Hillis is one recusal. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, Ms. Williams-George, will you please begin?
Thank you, and good morning, committee members. Item 8 presents Santa Maria Bonita School District, which is in stage 4 of the initial institutional approval process, which you can see highlighted on page 3 of this item. As you know, stage 4 requires institutions to respond to program-specific standards. Those responses are then collaboratively reviewed by 2 qualified BIR reviewers who provide recursive feedback to the institution until they come to consensus on a finding of aligned for all program standards. Santa Maria Bonita School District was granted stage 2 approval in April of 2022 and stage 3 approval by the Commission at its most recent meeting in June 2022. This quick succession of approvals is indicative of Santa Maria Bonita's commitment to developing and implementing a quality teacher induction program for the upcoming academic year. And our timing is perfect because in 1 week, on August 11th, the school year starts for them. As is standard for the IIA process, I've been working with Shelley Hart and others through these first 4 stages and have found them to be both knowledgeable and responsive to feedback, as well as passionate about their work. Santa Maria Bonita School District Stage 4 responses to the Teacher Induction Program standards and the results of the BIR review are presented in this item for the committee's consideration for possible program approval. Based on a finding of met for all program standards, staff recommends program approval. This will allow the institution to offer a teacher induction program, collect and submit relevant data, and host a provisional site visit in 3 years. After this provisional site visit, Commission staff will bring a complete report before the COA for consideration of full approval. Staff is happy to answer any process questions, and Shelley and Jennifer are here to answer any questions regarding their stage 4 submission and their proposed teacher induction program. Thank you for your attention to this item.
Thank you, Dr. Williams-George. We now invite institutional representatives to briefly comment on the proposed program.
Good morning, everyone. We
Good morning.
want to thank you for considering our program for provisional approval. We are excited for the opportunity to provide induction to the new teachers of California and our teachers here in Santa Maria Bonita School District. Our district typically hires between 50 and 100 teachers every school year, and historically we have sent our teachers to either Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo County Offices of Education for their induction needs. This drive is well over an hour for our candidates. We also know that additionally, these programs are designed in and for communities with demographics very different than that of our student population.
By providing our own induction, we can be more responsive to the needs of our candidates and support them locally in the context of our own community. We appreciate the opportunity and we thank you for your attention to our submission.
Great, thank you both for your comments. Any member of the public wish to offer any comment on this item?
No comments, Bob.
Thank you. So opportunity for the COA members to offer any comment or question. All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to approve Santa Maria Bonita School District's teacher induction program? Member Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I move that we approve Santa Maria Bonita's proposal for teacher induction program.
Thank you. Second by Member Lee. Will the staff please call the roll?
Jomaline Belatayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee, Jason,
He looks like he's saying
Sorry,
aye.
aye. Wouldn't unmute.
Kevin
Give me
Taylor.
the clue now. I'll point to my eye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. So congratulations, Ms. Loftus, Ms. Hart.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And as always, thank you, Dr. Williams-George. We're going to skip item 9 and we're going to move on to item 10. Item 10 is a discussion of the third quarterly report for Santa Barbara Unified School District. Consultant Dr. Sarah Solari Colombini will introduce the item. And joining her today to answer any questions you may have is Institutional Representative Roxana Stern, Teacher Induction Program Coordinator. Does anyone need to recuse himself? All right, seeing none, Ms. Solari Colombini, will you please begin?
Hold on, we're getting her in, I think.
Okay. That'll give Member
Can you
Lee
see-
time to get more coffee. No problem.
You don't see Sarah? I confirmed with her yesterday. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe we'll have the institution respond to questions. that
Okay.
the
We
committee
can
may have.
we can start with that. Yep. And members of the institutional representatives, would you like to offer any comments or thoughts?
Just appreciation for your partnership with us in this process and giving us the ongoing opportunity to reflect on the work that we are doing. We actually launch our program next week on the 11th and 12th. We have our new candidates and our second year candidates coming in, and we look forward to rolling out some of these improvements and redesigns with them, as well as with our mentors on Monday, the 15th.
Thank you. It happens quickly.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the comments. Any member of the COA have any comment or questions you wish to ask?
And Sarah did say that she's here, but I don't know if we see her. She's not showing up.
There's one that shows Commission on Teacher Credentialing. I don't know. Oh, that's Kara.
There she is. There's Sarah.
There she is. Okay.
I'm like, I'm here. I didn't know how. I'm like, I finally emailed you, Cheryl. I'm like, no, I'm here. Sorry, I guess I must have my name on as one of the other Zoom because I was on a Zoom conference call yesterday. So I apologize. Yeah.
No worries. Thanks for joining us.
You know, you feel like you're like, I'm just sitting over here thinking I'm trying to get at you guys. I'm like, yes, I am here. So good morning. I apologize. So Roxana, thanks for being here too. I know we were going back and forth this morning. Okay, may I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is the third quarterly report for the Santa Barbara Unified School District, and Santa Barbara Unified did have a provisional site visit October 4th through the 6th of 2021. And the results from that site visit were brought to the COA in February of this year. And at that meeting, the COA took action to grant the institution the status of accreditation with stipulations and directed the institution to provide quarterly reports, updating the COA on the status of addressing the stipulations. And since that time, Roxana Stern, who you've just spoken with a little bit this morning, she's the coordinator of the Teacher Induction Program at Santa Barbara Unified. She delivered the first quarterly report at the March 2022 COA meeting, and then the second quarterly report at the May COA meeting, and is now presenting the third quarterly report as the district continues to address the stipulations. The final report is going to be delivered at the October COA meeting, and that will be actually a full year from their original provisional site visit. So she is with us. You've already kind of started speaking with her, and now that the technical difficulties have been resolved, I will let her and you engage in the discussion.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Blair Colombini. Any committee member wish to offer any comment or question? Co-Chair Martinez.
Thank you. So I had a hard time opening the links last night, so I didn't have as much time as I'd like to with the items. But so I was just hoping, Ms. Stern, that you can tell us a little bit about, you're in the third quarter now, and have been making the changes. What are some of the biggest, I would say, like maybe benefits for candidates that you see coming, like as you start the new school year, like you mentioned, based on the changes you're making, what you've learned through the process of accreditation, et cetera? Thank you.
Thank you. I was struggling with the links this morning too, so I apologize for that, but I have been working with Sarah to get that cleaned up. So it's technology, despite the age of Zoom, we're still fighting these little battles. The greatest improvement for candidates, I think, will be improved clarity for them on what to do in situations that fall a little bit outside of the box, and situations where they have a struggle meeting guidelines. It was previously more verbally communicated, or there were assumptions made that people would know to ask for support. And it's more clearly laid out now what the process is to ask for support and what types of support are being offered. So it's our program is much like the new teachers that it supports, that it is a young program. And as a new teacher, you get to know your students and discover the ways to meet their needs. And we're also seeing, of course, that our candidates are evolving. They're very different from the candidates we first had in 2018. So we strive to support them, meet them where they are, and support them and provide clarity. And this process has allowed us to do that, and also to facilitate their development into being more self-reliant and knowing where to look for information.
Thank you very much. I appreciated what your first two quarterly reports, the changes. And so I also appreciate this clarification, the work you're doing to continually adapt to meet the needs. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you both. Any other committee member have any comment or question? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to accept the third quarterly report for Santa Barbara Unified School District? Member Boletayo.
I move that we accept the report from Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Thank you. So moved. Is there a second? A second by Co-Chair Martinez. Staff, please call the roll.
Jomeline Boletayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Ellen Hallis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Stern.
Thank you very much, committee members.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Solari Colombini. Appreciate it. We are going to move on to item 11 now. Item 11 is a report of the accreditation team to National University. Consultant William Hattrick will introduce the item. And joining him today to answer any questions you may have are institutional representatives, Dr. Robert Lee, Dean of the Sanford College of Education, Dr. Donna Elder, Associate Dean, Sanford College of Education, Dr. Patricia Hadet Kirsch, Director of Clinical Practice for Sanford College of Education, and Dr. Kim Levy, Interim Vice President for Planning and Institutional Effectiveness. And just before we start, I want to remind the committee that this item was presented and discussed at the June 2022 meeting. However, because the committee at that time didn't have a quorum, we could not take a vote. So because of that, we put this back on today's agenda. And we want to thank the team from National for their persistence and patience as we start through this, and glad you came back to join us today. The team lead is not with us today, but we are confident that should you have any further questions, William Hattrick, the state consultant, and or any member of the national team members will be able to respond. Anyone need to recuse himself?
I will need to recuse.
Member Hallis, one recusal. All right, seeing no others, Mr. Hattrick, will you please begin?
Sure. Good morning, committee members. The virtual site visit for National University took place May 15th through 18th for their educator preparation credential programs. And as already mentioned, the agenda item was presented to the COA at the June meeting. The institutional leadership, the program directors, all faculty and staff from National were very responsive to team requests for additional information related to their credential programs and accommodating any needs that the site visit team had. In addition to interviews, the team reviewed evidence provided both before and during the site visit to determine findings on all of the common and program standards. And the overall recommendation from the team was accreditation with a 7th-year report. And we do have the leadership team from National all here with us again today. So thanks for coming back and making time. Should you have any clarifying questions?
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. So this is the time for the institutional representatives to briefly comment on the program. I remember we had an opportunity for that in June, but we want to hear from you today if you had any further comments or questions you would wish to offer.
Donna Elder, and we want to thank the team and everyone who worked so very closely with us over our 2 years as we were preparing and for our site visit, and felt that we had a really wonderful site visit and that all of the team members did a really great job and provided us with great feedback. And I think Dr. Lee probably has a comment also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see a full house today. On behalf of National University, our leadership, our board of trustees, faculty, staff, students, and of course our alumni, we're just so grateful to CTC and particularly William Hattrick for his guidance and leadership. Also to our team lead, Dr. Kotar and his team for all the time and energy that was devoted to us and through our accreditation review and site visit 2 months ago. With all the preconditions aligned and common standards that were met across 127 program standards, with the exception of the 3 that were met with concern, we recognize just the immense lift that the CTC review team had to do to review the work, to understand the complexity of our programs, as well as the coordination required to operate across the state of California. We also wanted to express our gratitude to the entire team, and just really for taking the time to meet with all of our representatives, from our university senior leaders to our faculty, again, our staff, alumni, advisory board members, students, and our partners that included 412 different interviews. So I just wanted to thank you for the breadth and scope of that.
Great, thank you, Dr. Lee. Any member of the committee? Well, actually, first, let's wait for the public. Any member of the public wish to drop any comments?
No comments, Bob.
Thank you. So the opportunity for the committee members to drop any question or comment. Do not see any. So at this point, this is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Belatayo.
I move that we accept the recommendation of accreditation with a 7-year report for National University.
Great, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Member Hillis. Will the staff please call the roll?
Chomali and Belatayo.
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes.
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski.
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Jason Lee.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Lee, and thank you, Dr. Elder, for joining us this morning. Congratulations. And also please congratulate your colleagues, Dr. Levy and Dr. Kirsch, for, I understand they couldn't be here this morning, but again, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thank you as always, Mr. Hattrick.
Thank you for rejoining us today.
So we're going to move on to this item 12. Item 12 is a discussion of the second quarterly report from Sacramento City Unified School District. Administrator Aaron Sullivan will introduce the item, and joining us today to answer any questions you may have are institutional representatives Kelly Dunkley, Induction Coordinator, and Aaron Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. Does anyone need to recuse himself?
I'll need to recuse.
Thank you. One recusal, Co-Chair Martinez. I see no one else. Ms. Sullivan, will you please begin?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a third member who's with us today. Her name is Hillary Harrell. And we'll introduce her when we have a few minutes to address the committee. But if we can add her to the Zoom, that would be most appreciated.
I did let staff know that she'd be joining.
There
so
she
I
is.
see her.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, good morning, committee members. So Poonam is out and I am presenting this item on her behalf. I do want to welcome the representatives from Sac City Unified and apologize to the co-chairs for not including all the names in the script. So just to be clear, joining us today from Sacramento City Unified School District are Kelly Dunkley, their induction coordinator, Erin Hansen, who you just heard from, who is their assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, and their new director of professional learning, Hillary Harrell. So thank you all for joining us. So this item presents Sacramento City Unified School District's second quarterly report. You heard their first quarterly report in May, and since then they've been working very closely with consultant Poonam Bedi, and also at times with their with the team lead from their site visit as well. Sac City Unified operates a teacher induction program. They hosted their site visit last October, and the accreditation site visit report was presented to the COA at its February meeting earlier this year. At that meeting, the COA took action to set the accreditation status at accreditation with major stipulations. One of the stipulations requires Sac City to provide quarterly reports, and this agenda item is the second of those reports. On the first page of this item is the link to Sac City Unified's quarterly reports webpage, and a link to the site visit team's accreditation report as well. So you have all of that information available to you in addition to the details of this quarterly report. The 9 stipulations that Sac City is required to address through these quarterly reports are listed across the pages, well, 1 and 2, etc. of this item. But I would like to go ahead and turn things over to Sac City to talk a little bit about all of their activities, efforts, and actions since the May quarterly report, and looking forward that they're taking to address the stipulations from their accreditation site.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, committee, for being present and considering our second quarterly report today. So a few highlights that I would like to share from the last 3 months. First, we have hired our educator development professional learning director, Hillary Harrell, who is here with us today. She hasn't actually officially started with Sac City. We were just offered and accepted the position on Monday, and I asked her if she would join us today so that she can begin the process of really learning and helping to lead our efforts in this area. So we've been reporting over the last 2 times we've been with you that we were working to implement and hire this position. So public institutions, it takes a while, but we're really happy to have somebody on board to help us strategize and meet the stipulations that are in the report. So the other position that we've hired over the last few months is a human resources position, a director of talent management, really focused on recruiting and retaining our employees. And so one of the themes of our accreditation report was that we are operating in a very siloed manner in Sac City. And so the intent with the talent management director and human resources and this educator and leadership development professional learning director in the academic office is that we really work in tandem about how we bring new teachers and administrators into our system, how we onboard them, and how we provide them with ongoing professional learning that's aligned with our district priorities. So we're very excited about these developments, when we're expecting Hillary to be on board in the next couple of weeks officially. Another highlight for us in the last 3 months
bear with me for a minute because this initially might not sound as related, but we have done a lot of summer work around defining and supporting high quality instruction in Sac City Unified. So our district leadership team participated in a Carnegie Foundation leadership network in June. We did the Harvard Public Education Leadership Program in July, and a PLC focused conference in July as well. And coming out of that, we've established a problem of practice for our district around the lack of professional learning model that's coherent and focused on high quality instruction, and really focused on how do we better build the instructional capacity and leadership capacity of the adults in our system so that we can better support the students in our system. And what has emerged from that is a really robust strategic plan around professional learning. And it's a 3-year process, and our focused work in induction and new teacher, new administrator work is all a very big part of that we really build that instructional leadership and the instructional capacity of our teachers and leaders as they are coming into our system, and making sure that the work that we do there is very much aligned. And so that was another theme in our accreditation report, was that we weren't unified and aligned around a common vision. And so that work has been really instrumental this summer in bringing all of our departments together. We're taking that work, we've worked through that process with our special education department, our cabinet. We are working through it with our board, bringing it to human resources and business services over the next coming weeks, so that our whole entire system is aligned with how we provide high quality tier 1 instruction to both our adults and to our students. So I'd say that's the second highlight. The third piece I want to bring to our attention is the advisory committee and the challenges that we've had around bringing in all of our stakeholders. And so I'm really excited about the strategic work that we're doing, because we are working more closely with other departments. We're also working collaboratively with our teachers union right now on our August certificated professional learning and our new teacher orientation. So we're starting to lay some new groundwork right now around how we collaborate with our teachers union, which I'm very excited about. I feel like we're really starting to make some headway that will allow us to bring our teachers into this advisory committee and really be a part of how we design and improve it. So this idea that we're not doing things to our teachers, but that we are doing it with them. And so I feel like we've made some really good initial first steps on that collaboration. So those are the highlights. We're happy to answer any additional questions that you might have about any of the things in our report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the thorough report. Any comment or discussion from COA members? Member Lee.
I just want to thank Sac City and just really acknowledge and appreciate the work that you do to bring teachers to the table. I think that if that's not part of who you are as an organization, Sac City may know better than many districts that can be a huge obstacle. And so getting everybody at the table to kind of listen and understand and create some input and buy-in is crucial. So great job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Lee. Any other committee member? Member Tchaikovsky.
Yes, thank you for your report. I was just going to ask if you and I apologize if this is linked in your report that I didn't see, but when you talk about challenging the siloed nature of your program in the past, and your efforts to better integrate within the larger context of education in your region, what kind of indicators are you using to know that you're achieving your goal? Like, what data are you using to gauge that transition?
So the data that we're like the measurement of success on the de-siloing piece. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I was
curious about. So that is a really good and important question, and one that we are grappling with right now, because, what is the baseline measure of what does it look like when we're de-siloed versus what is the measurement of when we aren't, when we're really collaborative. And so one of the pieces of our strategic plan is that in terms of building this high quality instructional piece and professional learning model, is that ultimately by the end of this year, that every site in their single plan for student achievement has integrated this definition of high quality instruction and built site instructional frameworks that are reflected in their SIPSA. So that's sort of where we started, with the end in mind for this year, and backwards planning in order to help us get there. I'd say that, we've struggled with measurement for this year because of the nature of the work that we're trying to do and really building that infrastructure for collaboration. I don't know exactly how we're going to measure that de-siloed piece. And that's something that we're definitely grappling with as we create this and flesh out the strategic plan. Is like, okay, here are our action steps. How do we know if what we're doing is working? Those 4 questions that we want to ask when we're teaching kids, what are they supposed to be learning? How do we know? What are we doing if it is working? What are we doing if it isn't working? And so trying to apply that methodology to everything that we're doing. So we're still very much working through all of that right now. But I would love any suggestions that anyone has about, the way that the type of data that we could collect around that de-siloing goal of ours.
Thank you. That's a puzzler.
All right, thank you. And any other committee member offering a comment or question? Okay, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to accept the second quarterly report?
Bob, my apologies. I was I just wanted to toss out one thing there. Feedback from stakeholders is kind of a useful conduit for data, and perhaps, informally, there could be a tracking of how your stakeholders do in fact talk about their work toward improving effective instruction. So, any attempt you have to collect input from people can generate some useful data. And if you ask some of the same questions across stakeholder groups, that might give you some way to, gauge alignment or redundancy of responses that you could use to draw a conclusion about de-siloing. So just a little suggestion, since I don't know when our paths might cross again.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Again, any other comments or questions from any committee members? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Would someone like to entertain a motion? Let's go, Member Hillis.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the second quarterly report for Sacramento City Unified School District.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Member Forbes. Will staff please call the roll?
Chomalene Bolatayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Howlis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Dunkley and Dr. Hanson, and welcome aboard, Ms. Harrell. Hope things go well for you.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your time and support.
Absolutely. And
Thank
thank
you.
you, Ms. Sullivan, as always. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on, just so everybody knows as far as the schedule. We're going to move on to item 13, and then we'll take a break right after that before we engage in the discussion of item 14, which will be about a 30 to 45-minute discussion. So we want to be sure that we come back refreshed for that. So we're going to move on to item 13, and that's the report of the accreditation team to the University of California, San Diego. Administrator Dr. Carol Mendoza will introduce the item. And joining her today to answer any questions you may have are institutional representatives, Dr. Chris Halter, Chair of the Department of Education, Dr. Cheryl Forbes, Director of Teacher Education for the Department of Education Studies, and Amy Becker, Associate Director, Division of Extended Studies. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? We have one, Dr. Forbes will be recusing. Any other recusals? All right, seeing none, Dr. Mendoza, will you please begin?
I will. I'm still waiting for some friends of ours to come over into, here's Bob. Oh, Chris. Okay, great. Yes, let me begin. Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. I'm pleased to be here today to share with you the report from the University of California, San Diego virtual accreditation site visit, which was held on April 10th through the 13th, 2022. The protocols for this virtual site visit were all in accordance with normal procedures relative to all of our accreditation visits. Team findings in this report are based on a thorough review of available and relevant institutional program documents, as well as a wide range of interviews with representatives. The accreditation team was able to conduct 310 interviews with various constituency groups associated with the educator preparation programs at UC San Diego. I believe that this strong turnout can be attributed to the exceptional and dedicated leadership of the UC San Diego team, many of whom join us today. Chris Halter, who has been already introduced, Cheryl Forbes, Morgan Appel, who is on a plane somewhere to places unknown, and Amy Becker, who also joins us today. I had the pleasure of working all year with Cheryl and Amy and with another colleague of theirs, Monica Zielinski, and I saw firsthand their commitment to the accreditation process, to their candidates, and to their education community. Under their leadership, UC San Diego educator preparation programs continue to earn accolades, and though the university seeks to advance knowledge, the Division of Social Studies, Social Science, where the educator preparation programs live, and the education and community outreach programs, they also strive to advance well-being of everyone, especially their candidates. The overall theme is encouraging people to do well and do good. And this approach is evident in their leadership. I would also definitely like to acknowledge the hard work and extreme professionalism of the site team members, Alan M. Enomoto, Doris Madrigal, Ursula Estrada Reveles, Trisha Fushilo, Janice McWayne, and Jacqueline Romano. And of course, I want to acknowledge the outstanding leadership of team lead Bob Perry. The team worked diligently during and in advance of the visit, conducting pre-visit interviews, planning questions for interviews, discussing findings, writing drafts of final reports. Bob's leadership and guidance related to the standards and preconditions and all of his general knowledge generated a robust visit of which I believe this committee can be confident. With this, I will pass it to Bob, who will review with you the accreditation team findings.
Good morning, committee members. It's a pleasure to join you today. And it was a pleasure back in April to lead this team of 6 team members that Kara just mentioned their names, plus Kara is our CTC staff member. As we look at the 8 programs that are offered by the University of California, San Diego, we can see on the first page of the report, and I will refer to that because that's our document at hand, all common standards were met. And I will note, as I usually try to do this because things get lost in met or not met, only one piece of one standard was inconsistent. So to me, that's a plus. They were all common standards were met. Across the programs, all standards were met, 72 of them by all programs except 3 standards were not met by the Ed Specialist Deaf and Hard of Hearing program. And we're going to drill down on those in just a second. I'd like to refer you to page 8 of your document. And there, I just want to point out the numbers. This is the Ed Specialist Deaf and Hard of Hearing program is extremely small. small and growing, and small with a vision. And we were pleased to hear that. But there were some comments that came up in interviews that rose to the level of a concern. And our team discussed them at length. And we are recommending to the committee today that these three areas are met with concern, but the overall recommendation is accreditation. So these are met with concerns, and I want to look with you real quickly and summarize them on page 14 of your document. They are under the Ed Specialist Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Standard 7, Standard 11, and Standard 9. Standard 7 has to do with transitional planning, and interviews with program completers, employers, and candidates did not confirm that transitions or transitional planning was addressed for infant, toddler to preschool transitions. So that's a piece of the standard that we felt was a concern, and we wanted to note that. Standard 11, that has to do with typical and atypical development. Program completers who were interviewed work in residential programs that they felt they were not getting the breadth of experience with a wide range of atypical disabilities for their area. And that was a concern for the team. And thirdly, Standard 9, and that one has to do with behavioral assessment and implementation. And candidates felt they were not as prepared in that area. So those are the three areas, Standard 7, Standard 11, Standard 9 of the Ed Specialist Deaf and Hard of Hearing that we're recommending is met with concerns. We are recommending today that the programs be afforded the opportunity to continue and all the things that go with that. And we are recommending accreditation, but wanted to note those three areas of concern. Available for any questions the committee members might have. Thank you for your time this morning.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Thank you, Mr. Perry. This is now an opportunity for institutional representatives to briefly comment on their proposed program.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. I would like to first thank Cheryl Forbes and Amy Becker, our leads here at UC San Diego. They did an incredible job putting together our documentation. But with any site visit accreditation, it's it's a nervous time, a concerning time for any program. But Dr. Perry and his team, when they came, they were very gracious and kind, open to discussions. So we just took the opportunity with them to engage in real dialogue about our programs and what we could do. So I appreciate Dr. Perry's leadership with his team and all of his team. I can't imagine this visit going the way it did without Kara Mendoza's guidance and support and leadership. I don't have enough kind words for her as a leader and a person who did this. So we appreciated everything that she did for us. At UC San Diego, we did take the opportunity to really think about the educational specialist deaf and hard of hearing program. So during the summer, we took steps already for that program. We have actually paused admissions to that program for the coming year to allow the director of that program to realign the program with the areas that were met with concerns, also to align with the new standards. At the same time, we're beginning the proposal crafting phase for a moderate to mild educational specialist program to make sure that both those programs align well with each other, since they will be connected in many ways. So I appreciate Dr. Forbes for really taking the initiative to think through our deaf and hard of hearing program to make it even stronger and serve our candidates in a much deeper way. So thank you very much for the visit and this opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Halter. Any other member of the institution wish to offer any comment?
I would like to. I'd like to thank everybody for a truly wonderful experience. As a newish associate director of our department, this was my first accreditation visit, and although admittedly quite daunting at the start. Through Kara's guidance, Cheryl's wisdom and experience, and the focus and diligence of my colleague, Monica, who isn't able to join us today, things went incredibly smoothly. As many mentioned during our visit, our department is in a constant state of growth. We're continuously looking for ways to improve our content delivery and communication. And through this process, we were able to take a deeper dive into our programs to see things through an alternate lens, which really helped us to implement key changes. So I want to just say we truly value your feedback and the feedback of our candidates, completers, instructors, program managers, and stakeholders. And I want to thank the site team and the COA for all your time and effort. And thank you to all who participated on our behalf. It means a lot to us, and we couldn't have accomplished this without you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Becker.
Well, in my role as institutional representative, not COA member, I'd like to first just start by acknowledging the team. I've been a site lead on a team, and I know how much work goes into that. So Dr. Perry, your role was just amazing. One of the things that some of our staff members, as well as our candidates and alumni and other stakeholders mentioned to me, was that they felt heard while they were there in person with each of the reviewers, and also in the final report. So it sounds like you got us and reflected back to us some of the best things we're doing, as well as the areas that we can grow, and really, really appreciated your leadership in that area. And Dr. Mendoza, I can't see your smiling face, but I'm going to miss that in our regular meetings because it was a real pleasure. As Chris said, I don't think we could, well, I know we couldn't have had the same experience without your consistent good humor and wisdom and preparation over the course of the past 2 years. And so a final shout out to some of my folks back at UCSD, because I know they're listening, as I really want to thank our program coordinators, Rusty Bresser, Rachel Millstone, Gabrielle Jones, and the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program for all the hyperlinking and all the work that went into helping gather the input for the documentation that goes into the site visit, and all of our faculty and staff and stakeholders for stepping up when we needed you. So it really has been in a continuous improvement cycle.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Forbes. Any other member of the institution? I think we've got them all. So it's an opportunity for the public to offer any comment that you may wish to make.
No comments, Bob.
Thank you. So any additional discussion or questions from the COA members? Member Hillis.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious if you have any reflections with the DHH program, being at an institution that also has one. We know of the demand for DHH candidates by the schools, and yet we continue to struggle as well with enrollments. And I'm just curious if you've been thinking through that, and actually I'm just looking for a little wisdom myself. So I'm just curious about that.
Perhaps I'll start, and then Dr. Forbes, you can join in. I think from the information we got from the site visit and from Dr. Perry's team was very useful. I felt like our DHH program was too broad in scope to accomplish some of the academic goals we had for our students and the standard that they needed to be effective classroom teachers. So part of the redesign is to think about the true purpose of our program to support effective classroom teachers, and pull back some of the scope on the other areas that were more academic that would not serve a beginning classroom teacher.
Thank you. I think one of the things that I would also echo, Member Hillis, that I think I heard in your comment was recruitment of candidates, because it is, we are recruiting from a national pool. And so, often we have difficulty for our candidates in meeting the California state requirements if they didn't go to school in California on the timeline that they need in order to complete the program. So we're continuing to try to look at our outreach maybe over time with some of our school districts, where we can start to recruit from within and build those pathways instead of only relying on the national pool. So that hopefully will help. The other challenge that we've had is placements. because, you know, we need to have that teacher that has a clear credential and 3 years of experience or more in a high need area where often there aren't too many of them. And these are small classrooms, DHH classrooms. And so, you know, you don't want to have like 5 student teachers in one classroom. So we're also working much more closely, I think, with some of our district partners to deepen those relationships within the Dr. Perry mentioned we've always placed our students usually in one residential school placement as well as in a K-12 district placement, and we're expanding our K-12 district partnerships so that we can provide them with that diversified experience that Dr. Perry mentioned. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Member Tchaikovsky.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I was just a little curious about one aspect of your teacher induction program, and that is selection of mentors. You know, it's obviously different if you're at a university versus if you're operating at the school level or district level. Can you just explain how mentors are identified and how they are then connected with candidates in your program?
Sure. I don't know if you're aware of our partnership with San Diego Unified School District, but our mentors are selected and recommended by teachers and administrators at San Diego Unified. At times we have mentors that are selected by candidates, but they have to apply and become accepted, and we match them. We match credentials with our candidates, and we do our very best to do that. So basically, they're either identified by our partners and recommended, but everybody still has to apply and be matched to a candidate.
Cool. And are they compensated through Unified or through UCSD or not?
Through Unified, they are. Through UCSD, they are not.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other committee member? Member Lee.
Yeah, I just commend the work that you're doing. This is such a high need. And if you ever need, I don't know if this is appropriate for the, you know, Bob to mute me in the middle of this kind of statement, but if you ever need satellite partners in Northern California, we just do not have the institutions up here to meet the need at all. I mean, so it's, you know, I've reached out to try to get, I mean, we serve we're a geo lead all the way almost to Del Norte County. So, so we could, which is a huge population, and we just don't have, we got a lot of students who need and not enough teachers. So reach out if you're interested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Member Lee, with your comment just points to it. There is a need throughout the state, so it's very timely. Any other committee member have any comment or question? Member Cervantes.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. Jason, after you spoke, I was thinking also of simulated learning and other means of perhaps providing us additional support and assistance. And I'm also thinking about alumni that go through your program, what maybe having a little bit of forethought, how do we best recruit, help them model and become models for our future students, right? So that the mentor debacle doesn't become something bigger, especially at a time of a shortage. So just wanted to add that there.
Thank you. That's been helpful so far. Some of our alumni have left the state. And so, you know, it's all part of the same problem. It's a very important thing that you highlight, and also with the simulations, because I think particularly in that area of the behavior things that there are some good simulations, for example, that we could be taking advantage of, and especially by, as Dr. Halter mentioned, when we eventually hopefully have both the deaf and hard of hearing and the mild to moderate support needs education specialist strands, they can, you know, we can have a little more number of students to be able to take advantage of some of these types of opportunities across both pathways.
Great, thank you both. Any other further comments or questions? Okay, this is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I move that we accept the recommendation of accreditation for UCSD.
So moved. Is there a second? Second by Member Lee. Will the staff please call the roll?
Jomeline Belatayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Cheryl, Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Ellen Hallis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations on a clearly a much needed program and a well presented report. So good luck and best wishes moving forward. I want to thank Dr. Halter, Dr. Forbes, Ms. Becker, Dr. Perry, and also Dr. Mendoza for joining us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We're going to take a brief break before we do number 14. Just as a reminder, later on today, we'll come back to items 5, 7, and 9. But next up will be item 14. So let's take a break till 10:15. That gives us about 7 or 8 minutes to get up, stretch, get some coffee, and we'll see you at 10:15. August 2022. Thank you all for coming back and joining us here. I'd like to reconvene the August 2022 meeting of the COA. And no need to go ahead and call the roll, but we're going to move on to item 14. Item 14 is a discussion with the Council for the Accreditation of Educator Preparation. And we want to thank those who are going to be attending for your patience as we have a chance to go ahead and rejuvenate just a little bit to be sure that we are focused for this discussion. Administrator Cheryl Hickey will introduce the item, and we'd like to welcome Christopher Koch, President of the Council of Accreditation of Education Preparation, Melina Monaco, Vice President of Accreditation, and Matt Vanover, Vice President for Communications and Government Affairs. Ms. Hickey, will you please begin?
Yeah, I'll just say something briefly. We are pleased to have our guest here today. We've had a long-standing history with CAPE and with its predecessor, NCATE, and it's a relationship we really value. We are at a point now where CAPE has made some changes to their standards. We also have to update our protocol or agreement with CAPE, and so we're sort of entering an important time frame for this work. So, the CAPE individuals asked us for an opportunity to speak directly to the folks that make the accreditation decisions for California. So we are really thrilled that you're here and happy to have a continued relationship. So why don't I just open it up to all of you, the three of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Cheryl. And thanks, everyone. Good morning to you all. It's great to join you virtually and to talk about CAPE. What we hope to cover really is just to update you a little bit on what CAPE is doing, some of our post-pandemic practices and things we've learned. Also, the quality assurance that CAPE is doing. We're always looking at providers about their quality assurance and how they're using data. We'd like to talk a bit about what we've done over the last few years, including our standards and the recent crosswalk we did with California standards that we've provided to Cheryl. We also, if time allows, we're certainly we'd like to share some national trends we're seeing, and then just take any questions you have. But we will keep it pretty brief, probably within 30 minutes or so we could take questions. We are now doing our reviews virtually. We were proposing to do that prior to the pandemic. And since March, we've spoken directly to over 250 of our providers nationwide. And overall, they would really like us to continue that. And for two main reasons. One, the fact that it's a cost savings for providers by about 20% the year of review. The other is that it's facilitated involvement from K-12 and some of the partners who otherwise may not have traveled to campus or been interviewed for review. We also provided additional level of support during the pandemic in the form of cohorts. Senior Vice President for Accreditation, Melina Monaco, who you'll hear from next, reaches out to providers beginning with the self-study and meets with them several times throughout the process. We're definitely going to continue that. It's been quite popular and I think helps to support providers as they're trying to rest the times we're living in and what to do about it. We have now 480 providers nationwide and internationally accredited through CAPE. A third of those are smaller in size, having 50 completers or fewer. Some of them with single-digit completers, and we have, of course, Research 1 institutions, regional institutions, and all types in most states. A third of our, 14% of our current membership also represents minority serving institutions, either HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, or tribal colleges. Moving on to quality assurance, there's 4 parts to this I wanted to just mention. One is just to remind everyone, we're an organization of volunteers. We have 700 volunteers nationally who we train. We've modified the training for volunteers over the last few years. They complete several modules, including a module on implicit bias prior to beginning the process of training. They go through training, which we now have been offering online, actually just finished with the month of July. It ends with a simulation, and then they're assigned to shadow a review, and then finally placed as a volunteer. Every volunteer interaction is evaluated. We evaluate them, the provider evaluates them, but all the team members also will evaluate each other, including the site team lead with the other volunteers. And we use that information in turn to recalibrate our training, or if necessary, to remove volunteers. We've also Melina has implemented a fairly rigorous process with the Accreditation Council decision-making. We do a concordance and calibration work where we look for and read every case. We look for consistency with volunteer comments within an institution, and then we look across all the institutions going through, including any proposed areas for improvement or stipulations. We found that that's greatly enhanced the decision-making, and we get 2 independent panels looking at the same evidence, making the same decision. And that transparency and fairness is important to us in our decision-making. We've also modified and streamlined our annual reporting. We know anytime CAPE asks for data, that translates to time and money from an institution. So we went from 8 measures to 4, focusing on those things that were most important that we were required to collect and that would have a meaning in terms of data analysis for us later. Finally, I'll give you background to the introduction to the standards, and Melina will talk about that a bit. We have 2 standing committees on our board. We have a research committee and a diversity, equity, inclusion committee. It includes folks who publish in those areas across the country. We did pull evidence from our first 200 visits. We looked particularly at our standard 3 and 4. We knew our standard 3 and 4 has been most controversial of our standards when we were looking to revise them, which was required in our bylaws every 7 years. The analysis of that evidence and the comments from the committees then went to a task force that met numerous times 2 years ago throughout the summer, and they went to our board, then out for public comment, and then back to the board. So the process, I think, was setting a good tone for taking a look at the changes that happened. And I'll have Melina dive in here and sort of overview those changes in the standards and what they mean for providers. Melina?
Yes, good afternoon. So a couple of things happened when we were doing the revision of the standards. We weren't coming up with new standards. Our task was to really look at the standards that we had and try and find efficiencies where there was redundancy, try to coordinate and align within the standards so that it was clear to the EPP, it was clear to the reviewer, and it was clear to the Accreditation Council what the expectation was in terms of data and evidence for those components. And so I formed a task force. We had about 20 folks that represented all of the stakeholders. So institutions, P12, we had state folks, we had reviewers, leads, we had, everybody under the tent to really talk about the standards honestly and look at data from the Accreditation Council, where institutions were possibly struggling, where we saw areas for improvement that were across states and across institutions, and where we could provide that clarity in the standards. And so we spent about 6 months going through every component, every word of the standards, and really working on the revisions. So it was important to me that all the stakeholders were at the table. My background is that I was at an EPP for about 15 years. I wrote a self-study myself, went through the process with my institution. I worked at a State Department, I was a reviewer and a lead, and now I work at CAPE. So I kind of have this perspective that I feel like, we wanted to make sure that everybody was buying into the process and had their voice heard. So we spent a lot of time talking within all of our stakeholder groups and really getting, I think, good feedback on the revisions. So the revisions went into effect in 2022, and we've had 2 semesters of cohorts go through that have utilized the revised standards. And there have been a lot of positive interactions with the EPPs and with reviewers with the changes that we made. So just a couple of high level changes is in standard 1, which is our content and pedagogy standard. That standard had quite a few components in the old standards, and it was a little confusing, I think, for both reviewers and institutions on what exactly to put where and how to tag and define that. And so we really worked on consolidating those components into something that was much more clear for institutions. So it's very clear what the expectation is for the evidence for those. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the changes there. One of the biggest, I think, pain points for institutions was what we call 3.2, which was part of the test score requirements. And there was at the beginning of the merger in 2012 and 13, there was quite a bit of discussion on sort of moving the percentage or percentile of meeting the 50th percentile and the 75th percentile. There was kind of this moving target, and it was really, really complicated and difficult for EPPs to meet some of those requirements. Although it wasn't an admission requirement, a lot of EPPs took it as an admission requirement. And so in the revised standards, there is no test score requirement at all in 3.2, which is now 3.3 in the renumbering. So there are no test score requirements or thresholds for institutions coming through at admissions or at any other point. We do have some EPPs that use them for different components, and that's fine. They still can do that. They have the flexibility to do that, but it's not a requirement anymore. And then I think one of the bigger, that was one really big, I think, piece of the revisions. But the second piece that was another pain point for institutions was impact data. So, how do we get impact data from our completers on their P12 learners, and what does that look like? And so we spent a lot of time really redefining and clarifying that component. It's still a requirement. It's still there in standard 4, but it is, I think, a little more easy to understand, and the expectations are clearly laid out for institutions. So we have, I think, done some work on that in terms of helping our institutions with impact data for completers. And then the rest of the standards, we just did, again, a little wording revisions, and also organize them in ways that flowed better from the old standard. So we still have 5 standards, and they're still talking about the same elements, but there may be, we changed some of the organization of the components themselves. And like I said, we've had 2 semesters of EPPs going through, and they've done quite well in addressing the revised changes. And we've seen some really excellent ways of addressing the standards with evidence. So good.
Thanks, Bonita. We are, by the way, updating our accreditation information management system. We have a lot of data from providers across the country, and we want to be able to use that in a better way. So we're going to be updating that over the next year so that we use that evidence and help providers see ways in which they can do things and meet these standards effectively. I'll sort of transition to national trends a bit and then just open it up for any questions. We've been convening our state liaisons, throughout the pandemic. We're going to continue doing that. And as I mentioned, we've spoken to a lot of providers all across the country just since the spring to see how they're doing and do a check-in. We have seen just a record amount of turnover in providers in states virtually everywhere, of course, which is no surprise. With the expansion of online learning, there was, I think, a lot of appreciation for CAPE standards and reciprocity. We do have now 2 states that have formal reciprocity for candidates coming from CAPE accredited providers, and that's Alaska and Virginia. We have a number of other states that informally will recognize candidates coming across state lines, which can help the candidate, of course, reduce its bureaucracy and I think can help address shortages. The shortages, of course, are impacting everything and everyone. And by the way, we appreciate our partnership agreement with California. We do hope that's renewed. We have 33 states and the District of Columbia who have partnership agreements, but this past year, we've also had 2 states who will now count CAPE towards their state process. That's Minnesota and Pennsylvania, most recently. We have also seen a record number of mergers among usually small colleges, with Pennsylvania sort of taking the prize with 9, but we've also seen them in Florida, Connecticut, Delaware, just a number of states where mergers are occurring from smaller colleges. There have been a few closures, and there's been significant staff reductions in some providers across the country. And I'm talking like going from 24 to 3 within a semester. So pretty much decimating their program and requiring them to withdraw from any accreditation if it's not required, because they are kind of hunkering down in survival mode. So that's also a concern. I think with the states are resting now with across the country, it seems everyone's trying to address shortages and diversify the teaching force. It's a worrisome part of that is that oftentimes the standards are being lowered, and the remainder of institutions who might be going through an accreditation process aren't being held to the same standard. So we see, a couple states now where high school diploma is sufficient, 15 states where 2 online courses will get you licensed, and we're also just seeing a number of substitute teaching laws being changed across the country. Again, that causes concern for us overall, and something that we're watching and trying to help states think through. We, of course, are a nonprofit, so we're limited as to the lobbying that we can do, but we definitely have been contacted by state legislators and others to try to weigh in on this issue, and we're trying to provide as much guidance as we can from our own experiences in learning. I will pause there. We've thrown out a lot of information. See if there's any questions or comments for Melina or I on these topics, or Matt. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cox. Cheryl, do you want to go ahead and lead the discussion, or would you like us to continue as we?
Well, I'm happy to kick it off a little bit.
Sure.
Some of the topics that you mentioned were ones that we certainly have seen. We've seen an increased number of mergers, I think, as well, or institutions closing and then another institution coming in and rescuing them. We recently had one here in California, Mills College, that has been an educator prep provider for decades, if not over a century, here in California, and they've had to close, and now we're seeing Northeastern partner with them, which is a good thing. But we're seeing that more often for some reason. I'm not sure what's prompting that, but we are seeing that. So I would love to have additional conversations with you after this meeting about how you're handling those mergers and that kind of thing. But I think a lot of the things that you mentioned were things that were important to us. For those of you who are newer, we have a couple of new members today. 3.2, I think, was a huge issue for California. That was a big motivator, unfortunately, of a lot of institutions, deciding not to pursue national accreditation. So I'm really happy to the work that Melina has done to rethink about the standards and make them clear. I've always thought that we need to also take a look at our standards constantly and be reevaluating the language to make it clear, less duplicative, and that kind of thing. So really commend that work that you've been doing on that. I think a lot of the same things you're seeing nationally. We also, one of the things we sort of copied in California from CAPE was the program impact standard. We didn't take the same exact approach that CAPE took, but we thought the concept was an excellent one. So not only do you have an assessment system, but how do you know for a fact that you are making an impact? So we adopted one. This is an area, I think, that we would like to revisit the language of that standard to try to also make it a stronger standard over time, and that is work that we've been hoping to do for years. So just thank you for all the work that you're doing, and really appreciate. We do learn a lot from the work that CAPE does, and hearing from our folks in terms of, what things are motivating them and what things that, they're hearing from CAPE and from other national accrediting bodies that make them improve their processes. So just wanted to throw that out there. So Bob, I'm sure others have questions.
Great, thanks, Cheryl. Before we do that, let's just see if there are any members of the public who wish to offer any comment. Right.
No.
Nope, doesn't sound like it. Okay, so this is an open discussion now. So any committee member, if you have any comment or question, now is the time to do it. Member Forbes, then Member Tchaikovsky.
Well, thank you very much for the materials you provided and for the presentation. I learned a lot. I wasn't aware, for example, of the possible benefit to candidates of the transportability of their licensure across states until you mentioned it today. So, I have to say the institution where I work is not a member of a national accreditation body. So what are you hearing from your institutions about the benefits, especially for those of us who are in states like California, where we already have a pretty robust state system of continuous improvement, which is benefiting us? What are you hearing in terms of what is added value through membership in your organization?
It's a great question, and I'll take it first, and then Melina will probably add some things to it. I think number one, folks that go through CAPE accreditation, we hear again and again, appreciate the focus on a quality assurance system being enhanced or developed. And we encourage providers who are going through CAPE to do that because it makes sense to them, not for us as an outside accreditor. And we have deans, faculty, assessment directors tell us again and again that but for the CAPE accreditation process, there wouldn't have been a staff focus or sort of a galvanizing force to go through and put such a system in place. And there's great value to that. We definitely have heard, particularly given, as you mentioned and I mentioned, with the expansion of online learning, the value of reciprocity. So many states are familiar with our standards, our work, our agreements, that does help with portability of credentials for everyone involved. And it also helps reduce state bureaucracies. We're seeing and have seen for a long time sort of states' capacity being hindered or limited. And we can bring to the fold, of course, this pool of individuals who have training and expertise to help do this work. I think also CAPE accreditation has helped in some places, we've been told, to fend off threats from lower quality competition. So folks who are coming in, we're seeing a lot more of that through providers in shortcuts. And I think having a national accreditation to rely on is really helpful and helpful to focus everyone on common goals. I didn't mention the specialized professional associations. That's an advantage in some states more than others. As you're rethinking your program approvals, we'll be happy to help you or think through that. But all of the SPAs are going through evolution as well. And some of them, foregoing, the entire process of recognition and being involved in that because of cost. But in some states, it's also helpful in that CAPE offers, several models for approaching program standards in our standard one. Melina, I'm sure I've missed some things that you would like to add.
Yeah, I think from a national accreditor perspective, when you do state reviews, they're internal to your state and they're folks that you work with within your state. But to have a national perspective from a national site visiting team can give you that kind of expanded independence from the review. And so I think that's helpful for institutions to get that feedback from a national perspective and not just the folks in their state. I also think that and we have some states that they're what I call all-in states, where all of the EPPs are required to go through CAPE. And I think they have more of a unified approach to their legislature than states that don't have that. So they're able to, as a group, come and say, we all have this expectation. This is what we are all doing. And so when a company comes and says, oh, you can just get your license with 2 classes online, the EPPs are pretty strong voiced in saying, no, we all have to meet these criteria. And so do any other entities that come into the state. So they can put up supports and defense of the standards within their state. So that has been something that we've seen in our all-in states. And so, that's something that is quite helpful. I think the other piece at the individual EPP level is really to have data to make your case against anybody that, comes in and says, oh, teacher prep is X, Y, and Z, or, what is the difference between a EPP prepared teacher and, one from a weekend course, and to be able to have data and have it organized in a way to say, no, here's our data that shows that we make this impact, and this is our positive impact, and this is what we can do, is again very helpful in terms of fending that off and having the data, not just saying, well, I know that we produce good candidates. How do you know, and what evidence do you have? And that helps, I think, EPPs to collect that and have that on hand whenever the need arises to bring it out.
And if I could just one other point too, having that CAPE accreditation in many cases is very beneficial for the candidates themselves, because in some states where the CAPE accreditation isn't required, you have schools that are what I call destination schools, where students will want to go to a school in a certain state for college for 4 or 5 years, and then they want to go back home or go somewhere else to do it. And if let's say that somebody decides they want to go to one of those beautiful schools in California, and then come back to the Midwest and teach, they might not understand, Missouri or Illinois may not understand what exactly it was that went through with the CCTC review, but they do know, okay, this is a CAPE accredited school, so we do understand the national standards that have gone through this and that is recognized by 33 other states. And so that is very helpful to candidates.
Great, thank you for the clarification. Member Tchaikovsky, before we get to you, I just want to remind the committee members that if you look through the agenda, you can actually see the hyperlink that will take you to the MOU that describes the partnership, the current partnership between the CTC and CAPE. So, Member Tchaikovsky.
Yes, thank you. As Member Forbes said, this is quite interesting, and I feel like I'm learning a lot, and I have a lot more to research here following this meeting. But, I did see the article in the Washington Post, I think it was yesterday, about this acute teacher shortage nationwide. And, California may be among the later states experiencing this critical phenomenon right now, which we knew was coming at us from quite a long time ago. But the reason why I mentioned that is one of the features. I have kind of just two questions, maybe if you could touch on these quickly. One of the things that I've come to appreciate as a member of the COA is the kind of coaching that our system in California makes available to all the schools and all the programs that are required to be accredited here. So if a program is in need of help or is unable to document alignment with the standards, there's this support that's available to them through this continuous process that's evolving over a 7-year cycle. So that was my first question: is to what degree are you and or your partners or other networks of affiliates with whom you work, how are you involved in this coaching of program leaders that is a hallmark of California's program? That's one question, or a system, I should say. And then secondly, I'm super interested in, you've mentioned data like lots of times, and then Melina, just now you talked about the benefits of having data to back up your claims that this actually makes a difference, right? You can't just do a Band-Aid program and expect somebody to be able to succeed. So I'm interested in standard 4.1, that completer effectiveness. This is something I've always wondered about is, okay, so we have satisfaction and we have satisfaction of adults, but what about whether we're actually able to ensure effective learning for kids? So I'm just curious about, and again, if this is something I can just research on my own, tell me where to go. But when you say under that standard 4.1A, P12 student learning growth, what consistent data does that entail? So sorry, that was more than a little teaspoon of questions lobbed at you at the same time.
Good
Choose
grief.
one or the other or both or neither.
I'll take both. So the first question that you asked was about supports, basically, and training and help for EPPs. And so we have a couple of things. One is we do have this cohort model where we meet with the EPPs that are going through. So when their shell opens, that's 18 months prior to their visit. So we start at that point to provide answers to questions and support. We have case managers for each state. I'm the California case manager. So I work with the EPPs in my state individually. If they have questions, concerns, we meet on Zoom, we talk. One EPP, I met with them once a week for almost 6 months. Because they just needed to kind of talk through what they were doing and thinking through the process. I came to California and did a presentation right before the pandemic to the EPPs that were CAPE to help them understand evidence and think through kind of any kind of questions or issues that they had. So there's a lot of support within CAPE staff and their case manager to help them with that process. For states that have lots of EPPs or multiple EPPs going through in one semester, we had one state that had 7 going through in one semester, and I met individually with those EPPs, but also collectively as a cohort just for that state. So for that semester. So again, they talked to each other and they could talk to me, but they could get their questions answered and supported through that venue. We also have CapeCon and kind of other conferencing kinds of processes or webinars. So we can support that way. We also encourage people to become reviewers. That's really a great way to learn about the process, is to be a reviewer and be on a team in the nation somewhere and really, think about what that looks like and think about your own institution as a reflection of that. So, so those are kind of the supports. For 4.1, in terms of evidence, we see a lot of things. There's some states that actually provide this evidence to their institutions. They provide value add data. They provide teacher effectiveness data. They provide all kinds of things. It's fewer and fewer states that are doing that. North Carolina, Tennessee, some data in West Virginia. So we do see some states provide some of that data, and then institutions kind of fill in where the state may not have all the data or all the programs represented. Most of our EPPs will choose one of 2 ways to sort of address this. One is through case studies. So they will actually have completers followed. They'll do data collection from those completers on their P12 candidates or learners and provide that and have, a case study across their programs. It's not every completer. It's a sampling of, completers and programs to make sure you have, at the end of 7 years, you've basically covered all of your programs and have, multiple cycles of data for those case studies. So that's what we see generally is that case study approach. We've also seen focus groups. We have some very small EPPs that have just a few number of completers, like 2 or 3, and they will follow them through a focus group and interview process and collect data in that way from them individually about impact. So that's generally what we see: state data, case studies, or kind of a hybrid case study / focus group with smaller numbers of completers.
So
Also-
really that's up to the state. The state then or the institution
It's up to the
determines what
institution
data set to use. I mean,
Yep.
so there is no like consistent set of student performance data that is examined under your system.
No, not unless it's a state required, right? So some states have the data and everybody in the state uses that in that way. So we do see that. There's a lot of continuity among those states, Tennessee, North Carolina, for example. But other states, they might provide very little information. They might provide help with employer satisfaction or completer satisfaction, but they don't help with the impact data. So, we see, again, some states no help at all, and some states, a little bit to quite a bit with some states. But most EPPs come up with their own process for addressing that standard and making their case for their candidate impact, their completer impact.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
To the first part of your question, I also want to mention we've had a longstanding partnership with Branch Education Alliance since 2015 when I first came to CAPE after, serving as superintendent in Illinois. That's very helpful. They offer a lot of professional development for their membership on issues of assessment, and measurement and quality assurance. It's a great organization. We also have partnerships with the 14 specialized professional associations, and our role there is we publish guidance for the development of standards, and we have a committee of our board that will review and offer feedback on their standards, in addition to letting those who wish to use our accreditation management system for the recognition process. And so we have 14 partnerships there as well. I just wanted to mention those in addition to the support Melina mentioned.
And we did have the, Chris, I don't know if you want to mention, the elementary ed SPA dissolved, and Kate took on the role of gathering everybody and promulgating standards for elementary ed. So we do have a set of standards for elementary as well, because that was a void that needed to be filled, and we needed to make sure we had standards. And so we did work on that process as well.
All right, thank you all. Any other comments or questions from committee members? All right, seeing none, we definitely want to thank you for joining us, Mr. Koch. Ms. Monaco, is that how you pronounce it? Monaco?
Monaco. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Mr. Vanover, thank you so much. It's a relationship that has been established a number of years ago, and we are pleased to be able to learn from each other in the process. And so moving forward, we hope to continue to learn. And I know that the accreditation system is strong in California, and it's nice to see that Educator is able to provide equally strong, and we share many of the same goals and objectives within the accreditation process. So we want to thank you for that. Cheryl, thank you again for presenting this. Any other closing comments you wish to make?
No, you will probably at the next COA meeting, you'll see a draft or a final version of the agreement, the next agreement, so we can get that moving. And of course, in the spring, there is one CAPE accredited joint CTC CAPE accredited institution that will come forward. So yeah, so we're looking forward to the continued relationship.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, again, so thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your patience and the timing. Again, we appreciate the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime. Let us know if you need us back. You all take care. Thanks.
All right, will do. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, before we move on to item 15, we went about to the halfway point, so I'm going to pass the gavel on to my co-chair, Marty Martinez. So Marty, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Co-Chair Farley. I just want to start just welcoming our new members, Hallis and Cervantes. It's great to have you with us. And thank you, Co-Chair Farley, for your work. The next item is item 15. It's a recommendation to remove stipulations for Las Virgenes Unified School District. And do we have institution representatives with us?
We are looking. Hold on 1 second. We have oh, yes. Oh, no, not sure. It would be Brian Gleason, and I don't see him yet.
Okay.
We could go back to one of the other items that we.
Let's go ahead and just go back. Which one would you recommend, Cheryl? Is probably 9? Yeah. Let's go back to item number 9. Thank you for your patience. Okay, item number 9 is discussion of institutions not in compliance with accreditation timelines. This is an information item. Administrator Erin Sullivan will introduce this item. Ms. Sullivan, will you begin, please?
Yes, thank you. So this is just an update for you all. This is not actually an institution that at this moment has not met a deadline, but we have been indicating to you since I believe your February meeting that Pasadena Unified School District had not submitted their responses to common standards. And we just wanted to update the COA and let you know that we did finally receive their submission in July. Their site visit is this fall, so the team lead and common standards reviewer and state consultant are gathering to review those common standards and get that information back to the institution. But we just wanted to let the COA know that that did finally come in.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I'm pushing the wrong buttons here, sorry. Do we have representatives from Las Virgenes here? Okay, let's go ahead and move to item 7 then. Item 7 is a report of program status changes. This item is divided into two parts. Part 1 includes items for action by the COA, which includes request to withdraw, request to reactivate inactive programs, and/or request to add a new content area to an existing program. Part 2 provides information on programs that have transitions to revised program standards and programs that have elected to change to inactive status. These items are for notification only and require no action by the COA. Today, we only have withdrawals to act upon and no items for Part 1B and C, nor for Part 2, D, and E. So Section A, program withdrawals. There is one program sponsor withdrawing 3 programs. Antioch University is withdrawing preliminary ed specialist mild moderate program effective October 31st, 2022. They're also withdrawing teacher induction effective October 31st, 2022, and preliminary multiple subject intern effective October 31st, 2022. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
No comment.
No comments from the public. This section is for action. Are there any recusals? Okay, do I have a motion?
Sure.
Thank you. A motion from Member Forbes. Can you
I
please
move
state
we
the motion?
I move that we accept the request to withdraw programs from Antioch University.
And do I have a second? Committee Member Hillis seconded. We'll now do a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, opposed say no. Please call the names.
Dromaline Valatayo,
Aye.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley. Bob,
Aye.
Alan Ellis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. As previously stated, there are no items to present for sections B, C, and D, and E at this meeting. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Administrator Hickey.
I just wanted to mention on this last item with the Antioch University that these are their 3 only programs. So unless I receive a letter from the institution that says that they would like to remain open as an institution, then as of October 31st, this institution would close. We have been in discussion with them, and they are considering at the moment what the future holds for them in terms of preparing educator preparation programs going forward. So at this point in time, I'm considering them going to be closed as of October 31st, but we may get a request. And you'll recall that in our handbook, we allow that as an option where they could close the programs but keep the institutions open for and I can't remember the period of time that is allowable, but just wanted to let you know. And if that is the case, we will bring that forward to you in October.
Thank you. Do we have institutional representatives here now for item 15?
Okay. All of them? And do we have the consultant? Which would be Miranda, I think.
Yes. So we have all present? Okay.
We could go there.
Let's go ahead and move to item 16. We'll come back to 15. Item 16 is the discussion of the second quarterly report for the University of Southern California. Consultants Miranda Gutierrez and Jake Schuler will introduce this item. They are joined by institutional representatives Dr. Kate O'Connor, Assistant Dean for Professional Development, Dr. and I'm sorry, is it Shomara Mateo Gaxiola, Director of Community Engagement, Office of Equity Inclusion. And we're not sure if we have Dr. Kathy Kresha, Director of Accreditation and Credentialing.
She was en route somewhere.
And Ms. Gutierrez, will you begin?
Sure. Good morning. Thank you. So this is the second quarterly report to address stipulations for University of Southern California. The report builds on the actions reported at the May COA meeting, and USC's report is linked in the agenda item. And you'll notice that the report is a working document and includes all the actions taken to date. So it includes the first and second quarter reports. And Jake and I are just going to give brief summaries of what's provided in the report, and then representatives from the institution will be able to provide additional context to what's in the report. So looking at stipulations 2, 3, 4, and 7, they revolve around the unit and its inclusion of all programs and its decision-making processes and continuous improvement processes, as well as the authority to support the needs of all programs and the capacity and resources to effectively advise candidates in all the programs. So in the report, USC has noted that various meetings have taken place to include all programs at the unit level. And then you'll notice that for the next quarterly report, staff is suggesting that USC provides agendas and meeting minutes from any relevant meetings that have occurred to date. To address stipulation 5, which is that USC provides evidence of a candidate-centered process to identify barriers for entry and retention into the profession for candidates from diverse backgrounds. The first quarterly report included information about the dean's charge and strategic plan priorities. Since then, the unit has hired a new director for the Master of Arts in Teaching program. And so for the next quarterly report, staff is suggesting that the report provide information specific to the recruitment and retention of candidates from diverse backgrounds. For stipulation 6, that was centered around personnel within the unit who are able to guide candidates in meeting the program requirements. And USC noted that additional staff have been hired. And in the next quarterly report, staff is suggesting that descriptions of the new staff members' roles and how they will provide candidate support in meeting program requirements be included in the report. So I will let Jake go over some stipulations that were around the preliminary admin services program.
Thanks, Miranda. Good morning, everyone. So the stipulations for USC around the preliminary administrative services credential program centered around 3 different program standards. So the first was program standard 2, which was regarding regular and open communication and coordination with community partners and school districts. In response to this standard, USC has created an advisory board that has now begun to hold meetings. And you can see evidence of those meetings in the report. The next standard was program standard 7, around ensuring diversity in field placements for all candidates. In the first quarterly report, there was discussion of a process to analyze each candidate's placement to ensure that they have experience in a diverse school setting. The second report from USC did not provide further information about this specific process. So staff is recommending that the next quarterly report discuss progress made on that process. Lastly, program standard 8, and there were 2 different areas here. One was on gathering consistent feedback from candidates on their field experiences. And then second was providing feedback to the candidates on their performance in those placements. So steps taken by USC have included implementing midterm and end of course fieldwork satisfaction surveys. And actually I said implement, but where they are at now, according to the report, is working on the implementation over the summer, but that those would start in fall of 2022. Also, they've added or looked at adding new opportunities throughout the year for candidates to receive feedback and constructive suggestions for improvement. And again, these would be implemented in fall of 22 with the first round of discussion of those results in January of 2023. For the next quarterly report, staff suggests additional information on how the rollout of those efforts has gone. That concludes our presentation, and I'll turn it back over to the chair and also to USC, who I know has some comments they'd like to make.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez and Mr. Schuler. I wanted to note that member Bolatayo recused herself. Is there any other members that need to recuse at this time? Okay, at this time, I'll turn it over to institutional representatives to briefly comment on their quarterly report.
Hello, everybody. I was not sure I was going to make it, but greetings from Austin, Texas. Yay. It's very humid here. Thank you so much, Jake and Miranda, for that fabulous introduction and all the information. I will, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go back over some of the information already shared, but I do want to provide some, some of the highlights. We've been really busy since the last quarterly report. There have been a lot of staffing changes, and our efforts, have really been concentrating on our staffing as, we had quite a bit of transition. So we really needed to get that handled as quickly as possible to provide as much support to all the candidates across all the programs. And, as mentioned, we have a new MAT director. We have the Slave Paths has recently hired a new program administrator. Our counseling group is in the final stages of hiring a new program administrator and / counselor. The credential office and the placement office have also are in the process of onboarding quite a few new staff members. So, with the onboarding of so many of these key personnel in regards to the credentialing, there's been a lot of focus on creating and maintaining consistent communications with each of the programs. So, along with those staffing changes, we've been refining the credentialing support processes with each of the programs. And as you can see in some of the cross-functional meeting reports and some of the program admin meetings. So the other thing that's exciting that has happened is that we received our CAPE accreditation decision since the last quarterly report, and are happy to say that we are accredited at the initial licensure level for all of our programs at the initial licensure, and our next site review will be fall 2027. For the advanced programs, we received accreditation with stipulations, and we have a virtual site visit of documents that's going to be scheduled for fall of 2023 to look at those AFIs and the stipulation. The AFIs were mainly related to data sufficiency for CAPE requirements for the school counseling program. And then the only stipulation we received was related to the advanced program's evidence of collaborations with appropriate stakeholders, including alumni, employers, and practitioners, as related to our program improvement and evaluation activities. So if you don't have any questions for me, I can turn it over to Kate and Ziamara because they've been really, the work that's been going on in Slave Paths has just been fantastic. So I, want to make sure I give them a chance to talk about some of that because they've been working really hard and it really shows, and it's just been great.
Okay, Kate or Ziamara?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for all of your input and the time that you are offering us in this review. We've really appreciated the input we've received and the feedback and the improvements that it's made to the program. As Kathy mentioned, we've been very busy and very hard at work. We are most excited about our new team member. Marie Dacumos is the new program administrator for the School Leadership Academy. She started just this week, and we've already been hard at work onboarding her into the program and the team. Some highlights for the program have been around the advisory board, the amazing input that they have provided to the team in regards to different systems and structure changes that we've made. Also, our faculty team is just fantastic. They are so dedicated, so committed to the program and to the candidates and sharing their experiences, organizing instruction, and providing feedback. So we've had some really meaningful faculty meetings about the program, about changes that we need to make, about how we better serve our candidates, and how we improve course design. So this summer we have been involved in syllabus revisions. We have implemented new surveys and evaluation structures to ensure that we're providing candidates with as many opportunities as possible to give us feedback, and then analyze that feedback and put that feedback back into the program. Our faculty meetings have focused on that data and reflecting on that data and the changes that we can make. So definitely want to recognize our faculty team and their leadership and input. Some other really wonderful changes to the program that have come from this review are an equity framework that we researched and constructed for the program with indicators that are a part of our course review now as well. Some future plans, as were mentioned in terms of recruitment and retention, are to reach out to some of the affinity organizations for targeted recruitment into the diverse recruitment into the program, as well as offering our current candidates an opportunity to learn and connect with different experts in the field in a panel that we will offer in spring of 2023 regarding the unique experiences of principals and other administrators of color in the field right now, and how those dynamics are unique and deserve attention, and giving them the chance to connect on that. So those are just a few highlights. Kate, I don't know if you want to add any more.
I just want to add my thanks for the work that you've done on our program so that we could do the work on our program. A couple of things stand out for me besides having a new program administrator, which we're really, really thrilled about. And that is that the faculty worked always as, independent expert voices, but now they're really working as a cohesive group. And that has made a gigantic difference on the program as well. So that when we look at the kinds of changes that we're wishing to implement, there's a whole coalition of people who want to participate in that work. One of the things that came from the Ed Report data was that if there's a weakness in how we score, how our candidates score in CalAPA, it's in that business area. So one of our goals for this summer in revamping the curriculum, getting the syllabi ready for fall, was to look at that. We didn't get there, but it gives us something great to continue to work on over the course of this next year. So we're really, really looking forward to that and making sure that we address those areas of need or weakness, gaps maybe, that we have had in the program previously. And then in terms of the candidates themselves, we did implement the mid-year meeting for the site supervisors, and that has also provided some great data for us, even in the 2 times that we've met with the 2 different fieldwork groups. So all of those things are to say that the accreditation process is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and that is improve the program. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. At this time, we'd like to invite any members of the public who wish to comment on this item.
No comments, Marty.
Okay, how about members of the committee? Questions or comments? Okay, seeing no discussion, this is an action item. Do I have a motion? Member Forbes.
I move we accept the quarterly report of University of Southern California.
And do I have a second? Okay, Member Taylor, thank you. And we'll now do a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, opposed say no. Please call the names.
Augustine Cervantes,
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski,
Aye.
Carol Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Alan Hallis,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Jason Lee,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I'd like to thank Dr. O'Connor, Dr. Mateo Gaxiola, Dr. Kresha, Ms. Gutierrez, and Ms. Schuler. Congratulations and thanks for the great report.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, and at this time, do we have representatives for item 15? Okay, we'll move to item 15. Item 15 is a recommendation to remove stipulations from Las Virgenes Unified School District. Consultant William Hattrick will introduce this item. He's joined by institutional representative Dr. Ryan Gleason to answer any questions you may have about the report. Mr. Hattrick, will you begin, please?
Sure. Good morning again, committee members. This agenda item discusses the recommendation to remove 11 of 12 stipulations for Las Virgenes Unified School District. Their provisional site visit was held in May 2021, and then LVUSD was granted accreditation with stipulations with updates at quarterly intervals at the June 2021 meeting. The third quarterly report was presented to you at the May meeting this year, and it's also linked in your agenda item. The institution needed some additional time to address the stipulations fully, which is why we didn't have the update in June and are having it now. And staff has reviewed evidence provided by the institution since the last quarterly meeting. Based on the prior quarterly updates provided and additional information from LVUSD, staff is recommending that the COA remove the 11 stipulations and allow additional time to address stipulation 3B in the preliminary administrative services program specifically. This stipulation should be fully addressed with an update provided at the October COA meeting. And as always, we have Assistant Superintendent Ryan Gleason here today, should you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hattrick. I wanted to note that Member Hillis needed to recuse on this item. Are there any other members who need to recuse? Is that a hand, Mr. Lee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Gleason, at this time, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I just want to, good morning, everyone. I just want to continue to thank Mr. Hattrick and Michelle for their work with us over the past, feels like 10 years because of the pandemic, but I know it's been 2. Their work, their careful questions, their thorough push for us to find the right evidence have all made our programs better. And although the process is continuing to go on and we have that final stipulation, I know and trust from this process that it's going to continue to have an impact. Specifics on that are related to continuing to build those partnerships that with our universities and partner districts to understand our programs and how they're growing, but also how we can mutually inform one another on how to implement this important work. So we'll continue to work on that. Know that we have done a lot of work in those spaces, but it's a work in progress. And thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Gleason. At this time, do any members of the public wish to comment on this item?
No comments.
Okay, is there any additional discussion from COA members? Okay, this is an action item. Reminder that we have Member Hillis and Member Lee who have recused. Do I have a motion by a committee member? Member Tchaikovsky?
Yeah, I move that we accept the recommendation to remove 11 of the 12 stipulations for Las Virgenes School District. And I guess I would add, I'm just not sure about the timing of that final one. So I know that wasn't really a motion, given my addendum that I added to that. So maybe that's a question.
Why don't we start with?
By when should we then understand that final stipulation to be evidenced?
Yeah, so that will be within the next COA meeting, which is taking place in October.
Okay, so then I would just move that we accept the recommendation to remove 11 stipulations from Las Virgenes.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, Co-Chair Frelly. We'll now do a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, opposed say no. Please call the names.
Chomalane Bolatayo.
Aye.
Augustin Cervantes.
Aye.
Katrina Chakowski.
Aye.
Carl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Alan Hallis.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Gleason, and thank you, Mr. Hattrick. Appreciate you being with us today. Okay, so at this time we still have item 5, and then we have the remaining items on our agenda. So why don't we go ahead and move back to item 5?
Yeah, it'll actually be very short. I know I say that every time and it's long, but this one really will be short. I just wanted to mention 2 things. We, in the budget, we are being asked to, they lifted the suspension on the accreditation fees. So accreditation fees go back into implementation this year. We are currently working on getting those notices out to institutions and starting to collect those fees again. So I just wanted to put that out there. The other thing I want to mention that everybody now has a CTC email, the Committee on Accreditation. And it's not because we are trying to make you think of another password again and figure out how to remember those passwords, but we really think that it's important for there to be sort of a separation between the work you do for COA and your other work, as well as your personal life. So we will be using that CTC email to contact you in the future, now that we have everybody up on that system. The other thing it does is it helps protect the COA. The commission gets a number of Public Records Act requests. And so if you are intermingling the COA work with your personal and your other work email, what happens is when something's discoverable, everything that's along with all of that information, all of your personal, your emails to your Aunt May might be part of this whole public records request. So keeping that line separate will make it easier for everybody, as well as help protect you and your information. Your personal information will not have to be mined. So those are the 2 that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll turn it over to Erin because I'm sure she has a few things to talk about.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm just going to go ahead and continue with the theme of your new commission COA email addresses. One of the other things that this is going to allow us to do is, and you will get coaching on this, I will work with you on this. You will use those commission addresses now to access our Concur travel booking system. So you have been typically calling the travel store to, make airfare or train fare arrangements. You will be able to log directly into the Concur system now to do that. That is an advantage for 2 reasons. One, the main one is you'll be able to book hotels now through Concur by having that email address. So rather than us getting a hotel contract, which sort of forces you all to have to stay at the same hotel, which I know you enjoy, so I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't do that, but you will have you'll have a little more flexibility in sort of choosing a hotel. So I will work with you on that, but you'll be able to use that email address to log directly into Concur, book a hotel, and the agency will get directly billed for that, just like we are for your airfare. So again, I'll be reaching out before the October meeting to walk everybody through that process and hopefully get you trained on that, get you calibrated on using that. Other than that, I don't have a lot. We do have a commission meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and there are going to be some really interesting items on that agenda. So just throwing that out there, that agenda will be posted next Friday. If you have any questions about anything accreditation fees, please feel free to reach out. We can talk about that, but we'll be releasing a PSA that really explains the new assessed fees and reminding everybody what that process is.
Yeah, just to reiterate, the commission meeting should be very interesting. So you might want to listen to that. In particular, one of the items being discussed is the draft regulations to establish the new PK3 credential. So that's a very interesting one. And that's key point in its development. So if you're interested in that credential. And literacy, yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that, David. How could I forget? We spend a lot of time on literacy these days. So as you all remember, SB 488 required the commission to take another look at the standards and the teaching performance expectations around literacy. So we will, right now we have a survey out. We encourage everybody and anybody to look at the survey, to look at the TPEs and the proposed standards. And to give us some feedback on whether or not they are clear, whether they are complete, whether we're missing concepts. This would be an additional standard for the multiple single subject ed specialist and the new PK3 credential in and around literacy, and then the associated TPEs for them. So big, important topic. They will be presented to the commission as an information item at this meeting because there's more development that needs to be taking place. So, but really important, we need to hear from everybody. So we're getting some good feedback on the multiple single subject. We just have released the other standards. So we have a fewer numbers of responses at this point in time, but hopefully over the next few weeks we'll get more. Yes, please.
I'm gonna take advantage of this public forum for a couple of other things for the agency. The application for the student liaison to the commission, that process is open and has been open, and we haven't received a lot of applications for that. So since we have some, ed prep colleagues here, and since we have your attention, please share that with any of the students in your ed prep programs that you think might make a good liaison to the commission. It's a really important role, and we have enjoyed having that liaison over the last few years. So I just want to put that out there. The other thing is our colleagues in why did I just forget? The Division of Professional Practices. We use so many acronyms. I'm like DPP. Our colleagues in the Division of Professional Practices are served by a committee called the Committee of Credentials. They have some vacancies on that committee as well. They have a teacher, an elementary teacher vacancy and also a public member vacancy, and they are actively trying to recruit for that committee as well. So if you know anybody, the applications for that, the deadline is tomorrow. But I'm sure that they would be willing to potentially consider extending that if you or someone you know is very interested in serving on that committee. So I want to put in a plug for our friends in professional practices.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hickey. Ms. Sullivan, just a quick question. You know when the accreditation fees are due?
So fees are due by September 1st, and they are considered late on November 1st. And I will say that hopefully that will be okay. Obviously we are very interested in being flexible and working with institutions because this kind of came at us a little bit late. So we would have liked to have started this process a little sooner, but we really needed some information and some input from Department of Finance in getting this up and running again. So I am hopeful that I can get the PSA finished and released maybe tomorrow, if not early next week, and we can really get that process rolling quickly.
Great, thank you. I know that's of interest to many of us here. Okay, and I want to just make sure we are now moving to items. Oh, sorry, Cheryl, I missed you there. Go ahead.
I just had a quick question for Aaron. I know I've read the call for applications, but could you just give us a little sense of what type of commitment the student would be making to be the liaison? Do they have to attend meetings? Like how much time would it really require?
Yeah, so there is an expectation that the student be able to attend the meetings of the commission. I don't think they fall into the same rules insofar as, if they can't be at a certain number of meetings, we kick them off the commission, but they're really an informational liaison. They don't vote. But their voice on matters before the commission is important, and commissioners often really appreciate the perspectives that our student liaison brings to those conversations.
So their main commitment would be to attend the meetings and give input. And
yeah,
that
exactly.
would be paid for them to attend.
Yes, we pay for their travel. Their travel. They don't,
I
yeah,
don't believe they get they don't get a stipend, but I believe that we cover their travel
Yeah.
expenses.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Member Taylor.
Thank you. Did I miss training on how to access my CTC Committee on Accreditation email?
you did not. We haven't done that yet.
There's no training, but there is an email that gives you the login and your password. We will resend it to you.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Member Hillis.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. One of the things that struck me earlier today as we were going through the reports is looking at the difference between the percentage of interviews of students for completers and enrollees between National and UC San Diego. And I ended up just doing a quick calculation, and National was around 2% of their total pool. And I'm just curious, as a COA committee, and just kind of thinking through from the team perspective of reviewers, are they looking at a certain percentage minimum, or is it just kind of, we get a sense that it's a broad enough dip into the pool?
There's no magic percentage. We tell teams that they need to feel like they have heard a broad enough perspective across the various sites, various pathways, that they feel comfortable with the results. We do have some guidance that, if you would like us, what we could do, because this has come up many times, but we could come back in October with an analysis if you'd like, as well as the guidance that we sort of provide our consultants with when we're talking to institutions, and we can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like. Be happy to.
Can I add something
Yes,
to that
please.
as well? We do, in terms of the guidance, just maybe to try to get directly at your question, institutions that have a larger number of pupils, let's say, let me see if I approach this differently. We don't say we want to see 30% of your candidates, because an institution that has 3,000 candidates versus an institution that has 100 candidates, that 30% could look massive. And that's not always possible. They did interview a lot of folks on that national visit, and I just want to give kudos to the institution and the consultants, because that's hard to do. And especially during COVID, institutions have really struggled for some reason to get more candidates and completers to come to these interviews. But typically what we tell institutions is the smaller your candidate pool, the more folks we want to see, right? So if you only have 100 candidates in your program, we'd like to see, like half of those if we can. Whereas if you've got 3,000, there's just not time during the site visit to see 1,500 of them. So, we look at more like, maybe 250 or something like that.
Is that something you'd like us to bring back in October or at a future meeting?
I think I would. I mean, I'm just kind of, it's a difficult situation, and it's why I didn't bring it up in the discussion with National, because I totally agree, Aaron. I think the percentage, the number, just the sheer number that they did interview was significant. I think the challenge, though, is like in a program like that, that's a statewide program, those candidates actually could be located in a single area, may not be representative of an entire reach of the program. And so then there's questions of coherency or consistency throughout a statewide program. And again, it's not making a claim one way or the other against National, just more from a review perspective and curious how we decipher that as a committee.
Well, and if they were only from a particular location or area, that would be a problem. So that is something that the consultant is supposed to be looking for in the team lead to say, hey, we've only talked to people in your Bakersfield area and not your, Northern California satellite or whatever. It's obviously a little harder when you have everybody spread across the state, but as long as you're getting a good sense of that. I had another thought and it has gone from my brain. Sorry.
Cheryl, can I ask a question? So basically when a team really looks at, is there a cross representation of all the programs, of the context within the LEAs? And then so for something like a national that's virtual and has a statewide presence or a regional presence, then they also look, is there like a solid representation across that region?
That's correct.
Area
as well as if they have intern programs, if they have a residency pathway, we're also looking to make sure we're hearing from all the different pathways as well. And looking from every angle possible. Now, I will say, when there have been obviously times when we get to an institution and people aren't showing up. And so the idea is, do we press on and continue to try to figure out where the team lands with the standards, or do we, decide we can't do that any longer? And, given in the past, given the expense and the difficulty and the challenge of getting people on campus, we have sort of powered on as much as we could. And, poor teams, they've, made phone calls, they've, stayed on done one-on-one kind of things. But it does continue to be a challenge. Even in a virtual environment, it continues to be a challenge at some institutions.
Member Forbes or Member Hillis, did you feel like you had your questions answered, or do you want to? Okay. Member Forbes?
Well, on that note, and thinking to the discussion with CAPE that they're moving all of their visits online, which caused me to wonder, for example, what would a joint visit be like if it was in person for CTC? And we all know and hate hybrid. Well, speaking for myself. So I was just curious if there'd been any conversation about the site visits moving to a virtual format in the future without it being only due to COVID?
That's a very good question. Aaron and I are looking at each other because we have been trying to give this a lot of thought. Obviously, we've made the decision for the fall that they will be virtual. And we're trying to figure out, because we've had also requests to say we want it to be in person. Some institutions feel like they really would like it to be in person. So we have been trying to figure out a way to make the decision fair across the board, to consider where we might be with, the various strains of COVID, and we're still under discussion, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and trying to figure things out. But yes, I think the idea of virtual visits is still on the table, and under what circumstances would that be appropriate? Is it appropriate for everybody? Are there certain conditions that should be met first? So I would love, if you have some thoughts, I think we would welcome them, of course.
Well, just to finish that off, I think along with a discussion that you're going to bring to us about the interview sampling process, if there's any way to look at, what have the trends been now that it's been virtual? I mean, our own experience was that it was far easier to recruit virtually, even though it was still tough, because teachers are doing more than ever now, but maybe that would be helpful for us to be able to give input on.
Thank you, Member Forbes. Member Hillis?
Yeah, getting to that point of, might there be criteria that would dictate whether somebody does it in person or online? Am I misremembering Terry Clark saying something a few years ago that at one point CTC was considering for programs that had met all standards and that were fully accredited without stipulations, that there was potentially like a less intensive 7th year review. And I think I'm remembering that right. Maybe I'm not, but just curious.
No, you are remembering the overall concept. Part of the strengthening and streamlining project back in 2014 through 2016 was about how can we relieve some of the pressure on institutions that have historically had strong accreditation outcomes, or that some outcome measures indicate that things seem to be fine. So we've been having more and more conversations about, for instance, performance assessment and how to get our arms around using that data better. In particular, this would be one particular example is, maybe an institution has very, very strong performance assessment data, and does that maybe mean we don't need to look as closely at that institution in certain respects in the accreditation site visit year, or we have not gotten there yet. But yes, that was always sort of one of the objectives, is to figure out whether we can hone in on institutions that may need a greater level of oversight, and be less onerous on institutions that may have indicators that are not in need of such a greater oversight. And so the question is, how do you make those decisions? And that has always been one that we haven't been able to kind of wrap our arms around completely yet. But you're absolutely right.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Ms. Sullivan or Ms. Hickey at this time? All right, thanks everybody for the great discussion and for the short report. So, at this time, I just want to confirm we are moving to item 17. We haven't missed any, we covered everything then. Great, so item 17 is a discussion of changes to the Common Standards Glossary. Administrator Aaron Sullivan will introduce the item. Ms. Sullivan, will you begin?
Yes, thank you. All right, so initially, we opened up the Common Standards Glossary to update the definition of site-based supervisor. For some time now, we've been sort of verbally instructing institutions and review teams to translate the role of site-based supervisor for teacher and administrator induction programs to mean the candidate mentor or coach. We, I guess expectedly finally ran into some problems with this sort of unofficial definition at a site visit earlier this year. So it sort of elevated the need to finally just really update the glossary. So you will see that update to the site-based supervisor definition on page 5 of the item. Then, as we were reviewing the rest of the glossary, we noted that the definitions for authority at the top of the item and unit leadership at the bottom of the item both sort of erroneously referred to program authority when it should have been unit authority. So that was corrected. And we added an additional sentence at the end of each of those definitions to provide some additional clarification to institutions regarding the person that's typically in that role. And of course, it's hard to open a document and not want to make little edits here and there. So you will see some grammar edits, some places where we streamlined, 5 words into a single word to just make it a little more clear, but nothing else substantive at this time other than site-based supervisor, authority, and unit leadership. I would like to just mention one thing. Before I do that, so we need the COA's approval to make these changes, to make them final. If the COA does approve of these edits, we will go ahead and update anywhere we have the Common Standards Glossary posted with these new definitions. The little piece that I wanted to add, so one of the things that is going before the commission at its meeting in a couple of weeks is a consent item where we are updating the common standards to change the use of the word stakeholder, which has been demonstrated to us recently to be an inappropriate term that is offensive to certain Native American and Indigenous people specifically, but also to others. So we are asking the commission to approve a change to the common standards to change stakeholder to constituents or constituencies, And we're also asking the commission at that time, if they approve of that, to just sort of allow staff to go forward and update the use of the word stakeholder across any program standards or any other documents that we have, without having to bring each and everything back to them. So hopefully they'll approve that. If they do, we will make changes to the Common Standards Glossary as well to update the use of the word stakeholder.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment at this time?
No comments, Marty.
Okay, how about any additional discussion or questions from committee members? Member Forbes.
Thank you for the explanation, Aaron. I was curious about those. Let me see, get this right. Site-based supervisor, is that replacing district employed supervisor? How do those, I don't see district employed supervisor in the Common Standards Glossary. Maybe it's not in the Common Standards. Maybe it's in the program standards. But I think sometimes
it's in the program standards. You're correct.
Right? Pardon?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you. It is in the program standards. It's not in the Common Standards, so it's not in this glossary.
Okay, but thinking about it, then this is referring to possibly the same person as would be considered a district employed supervisor, but it could also be from the institution. You know, and one of the main reason I'm asking is because some of the programs, the advanced credential programs like CTEL, so, you know, sometimes they had questions about who are the field-based supervisors. And that, so clearer, you know, because it explains a little more.
Okay, I was just wondering, are you suggesting that like some additional edits to this?
I don't think so. I think I think it'll clarify it because it does include institutional based as opposed to district employed supervisors, right? It includes institution based. So if the advanced credential student and candidate in a CTEL program, for example, is not placed in the classroom for like a clinical practice, their field-based supervisor would be the instructor, could be the instructor who's overseeing that field work, because they do field work, but they don't necessarily have like a master teacher or anything like that.
I think that would work because the beginning of that sentence says an individual from a commission approved program or employing district. So I think it covers it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Forbes. Are there any other members wish to add comments or questions? Okay, this is an action item. Do I have a motion to accept the proposed changes to the Common Standards Glossary? Member Tchaikovsky.
I move that we accept proposed changes to the Common Standards Glossary.
Thank you. Well stated. Do I have second? Member Taylor? Thank you. We'll now do a roll call. All those in favor say aye, opposed say no. Please call the names.
Jo Molina Bulatayo.
Aye.
Cervantes.
Aye.
Katrina Tchaikovsky.
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Alan Hallis.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Jason Lee.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. We'll now move on to item 18, the discussion of potential accreditation handbook changes. Administrators Cheryl Hickey and Aaron Sullivan will introduce this item. They'll be joined by Hart Boyd and Miranda Gutierrez. Ms. Hickey, will you begin?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And with apologies to our two new members, because you're coming into the middle of this conversation. I apologize for that, but you'll have an opportunity to weigh in on the entire handbook at the next meeting. We have been spending time since the February meeting re-looking at the accreditation handbook, updating it, and making some edits. We have not adopted any of the new changes yet because we were hoping to kind of look through the whole handbook chapter by chapter. And we have covered most of the chapters. We still have a couple left that you'll see for the first time again at the next meeting, but we do hope to have the entire handbook for you to adopt at the next meeting. That's our hope. We are really waiting. We really need to get the handbook updated, not only because there's significant portions of it that need updating and don't really align well with what we have, how we've changed practice over the years, but also because some of our regulations that we need to propose or are in the process of proposing reference the handbook. And so we need to have an updated handbook in order for the Office of Administrative Law to make some changes to other related items that are going before them. So again, our hope is to go ahead and move to an approval of a clean document for you. We will, I think what we'll do, because we know this is hard to read when you have so many track changes, that we will probably have a clean copy for you with links to a track changes version, so that if you wanted to go back and look at those, you can certainly do that. And we've been taking your comments and edits as all along. So we think that we're in pretty good shape, but we do have some work to do between now and October to get this updated. So I will, I don't know if Erin has anything to add, but Miranda and Hart really spent a lot of time on Chapter 7. And so I've asked them to do the presentation of this part of this. And thank you very much, Miranda and Hart, for all of the work that you've done on this. And Erin, did you want to add anything? She's shaking her head no.
All right, so I guess I'll take over. Before we get into this, is this reading correctly? I'm not sure if it's backwards or not. I see it backwards on my screen. It's looking good. All right. So what we have for you today are revisions to Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is the chapter of the Accreditation Handbook that provides information to an institution preparing for an accreditation site visit. In reviewing this chapter, we found that it wasn't terribly outdated, so the majority of the revisions were made for the sake of consistency in language, clarity, and to bring it more into alignment with current site visit preparation practices, both for site visits being held in person and virtually. Additionally, some information was scaled back as it's referenced more thoroughly in other chapters of the handbook. So for instance, we removed the program review submission requirements from the chapter because they are covered specifically in the chapter dedicated to program review. That being said, regarding the cosmetic nature of the bulk of these revisions, I'm now going to turn it over to Miranda to talk about some of the more notable changes that were made.
Great, thank you, Hart. So to note a few of these changes, I'll just start with Section 1, scheduling an accreditation visit. So the current chapter includes language about your right to schedule more frequent visits as a stipulation of accreditation or based on reviews of annual data, submissions, preconditions, or program review. And so the revisions added really strengthened this to include that a visit may be scheduled if an institution has not met submission dates and deadlines, or if concerns are raised about whether an institution is in alignment with standards and requirements. Another change I'll mention is in Section 4, the accreditation site team daily schedule. You'll notice that day 1 of the site visit includes an overview of the institution and its programs, and we've added a note that this overview may take place prior to the site visit. Over the last few years, team members have been meeting with program leads prior to the visit so that they gain a better understanding of the program's overall design and can prepare their interview questions ahead of time and kind of based on having a better understanding. So feedback from that has been well received. They found institutions, team members, and consultants have found it to be helpful. And so we've included that as an option to be done prior to the site visit. Other than those revisions, like Hart mentioned, the majority were made for clarity and to better align with current site visit practices. So I think we can open it up for discussion or any feedback right now.
Okay,
Always pushing the wrong unmute there. First of all, do we have any members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
No comments.
Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and turn it over to discussion by COA members. Member Forbes?
Well, having just read this with great attention, I really appreciate your work in helping to update it into the current system, because I can see where those changes were. I kind of already knew that, but now it's helpful to see them actually in print. So I know it was a lot of work, but it's going to be very useful to institutions. So thank you.
Other discussion, questions? Member Taylor.
I'd like to second those comments. This clearly was a lot of work, and I think the changes improved the document, and thank you for doing it.
Member Tchaikovsky.
So forgive me if I'm missing things, but since we just talked about this potentiality of virtual visits only, I mean, these revisions are obviously very helpful in clarifying an in-person visit, but what does that mean for potentially forthcoming additions or edits or revisions of this chapter if online becomes the new reality?
I think so. It's so hard to say. It's the document is living enough that if we were to move to a system where we were all virtual all the time, we would bring you some updates to the handbook regarding that. So we would, bring this chapter back or any other chapters. So, we don't want to wait because the handbook is at this point quite out of date. I believe the last adoption was 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important, I think, to move forward with the updates that we know we can make now. But certainly, if something were to change, like going to all virtual visits, we would have to open a chapter like this and update it and bring it back to you.
Well, and I think Hart and Miranda tried to anticipate a little bit of that. If you look on page 12, day 1, the team arrives at the hotel site sometimes before noon, or for virtual site visit, assembles in the virtual team room. So there is room for that. But we probably would have to look at if we decide to go all in on virtual forever in the future, we'd have to kind of take another look at that. But I think there's enough flexibility there that we can make it work, but we might have to tweak it.
Yeah, I kind of just asked that also because I thought Mike made an important comment about the sampling of interviewing of interviews for the visit, proportional to the size of the program. And I don't know if that ought to be reflected someplace here, because it's really kind of not that I could see. And again, I know you explained that there isn't any expectation that there be a proportional relationship between the number of interviews completed and the size of the program, but at least 3 meetings, we have talked about concerns about that. That there might not have been as many as we might expect, or there was significant variation among the numbers that are not necessarily in proportion to the enrollment of the programs. I don't know. I just remember us talking about that several times, and it's not in here anywhere.
So we didn't update so much, but on page 4, and I'm sure Cheryl could, but this jumped out, right away to me because we do provide some guidance. On page 4, we do say that the institution working, in collaboration or consultation with their state consultant is responsible for scheduling the interviews, ensuring that an adequate number of interviews are scheduled for the institution and all its programs. That what does it say? Requiring to ensure that sufficient numbers of interviews are scheduled across all key groups. And there probably are some other places in here where it talks about the interview scheduling, but that is kind of the language right now that's included in this chapter. Cheryl?
I was just going to say on chapter 7, there's also that same kind of language, a wide variety. The site visit team members must have the opportunity to interview a wide variety. So we don't get to the proportionality issue because we don't require the proportionality. But if we bring you that topic to discuss in October, and you decide that there needs to be a policy that is more prescriptive, then certainly we could come back and add that to this chapter. But I think that's a whole conversation in and of itself. Yeah. I don't know that it even, sorry, did I
I'm not sure
No,
that
go
it
ahead.
even needs to be proportional. It's just that issue of,
Mhm.
how valid is your sample? Are the people who are giving you the data truly representative of the programs they represent? I mean, we are making the assumption that they are, because this process is obviously guided by people who understand the intent of the interviews, but just, adequate could mean something quite variable.
Mhm.
Thank you, Member Hillis.
Yeah, and just to follow up with that, I would assume, Aaron, that like in your training of the BIR members and the chairs and whatnot, that's a very explicit discussion. And so, I don't think it's necessarily our place to question the numbers per se as a committee, but rather to just be assured that the site teams themselves have thought through that for each visit. And so, so when the teams do come in, and again, that's why, like with the visit today with National, it wasn't necessarily that I was questioning the team's findings, more just a broader question about how do we actually get at an understanding of that from a site team visit perspective. So.
That makes sense.
Thank you, Member Hillis. Member Forbes.
Well, one thing I noticed going through the process this year compared to 2014 and our last site visit was that we had, regular meetings with a consultant, and there was a timeline in which we had to start showing our interview schedules, right? And so that gave a lot of time for dialogue compared to our previous time. In the 2014 system, it was much more built in, where there was a dialogue across many, many months about, okay, first of all, get with it. And secondly, like, are you really sampling all of the constituencies geographically? Because we have a program, our programs are online too at Extension. And so they're all across California. Are they geographically representative as well as representing each of the pathways within the programs? And so I think really the role of the consultant is so key in that. And I know there's also like a handbook for consultants that, is part of this entire corpus. So I think, what we can, as COA, understand about how the consultants are working with the institutions, and then the teams, are asking the consultants for things that they feel they need more of. Certainly on site, I've been part of reviews too, where we ask for things on site. We need to talk to more of this group and so forth. But I think the more that the COA can see what the members of the site visit review, the consultant, the team lead, and the BIR members, what they're being trained would also be helpful for us. Not necessarily saying either that the policy and the handbook should be more prescriptive, because we've learned that these are legal documents, right? And so we have to be very strategic and thoughtful about what actually becomes encoded.
Well, yeah, I'm absolutely happy to bring back an item that just focuses on this topic at the next meeting, and the whole structure around it. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you. This is an information item, so oh, sorry, we still have chapter 14 to discuss. So go ahead.
I don't know if you have any other suggestions for chapter 7. I'm sorry, before we get to 14. Great. Okay.
Member Frelly?
Yeah, I did have one thing I might have missed as I had to step out. There was somebody knocking on my office door. I apologize for that. But I don't know if it was mentioned it. I think it might have been, was there a discussion about the number of individuals who are participating on the review committee that actually do the site visits? Was that part of the discussion that I missed?
The team members?
Yeah.
No, we did not have that conversation. I think it may be in a different chapter. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I was trying to find that too. My only comment on that would be, because we've seen such various sizes of programs over over the years that I don't know that having anything formally put in there as far as the specific number would be essential, but rather I would leave that up to the opinion of the staff and what you all think would be appropriate given the depth of the program to review.
Yeah, and it's been interesting. That's one of the advantages of the virtual visits at the moment, is that we know there's no additional cost to the commission if we need an extra person.
Sure.
So we've been really, anytime something has come up, like there's an issue in a program that we're concerned that it may become an issue, it hasn't been we haven't hesitated because somebody has to make travel and all that. We were like, okay, well, let's find another person to dig down deeper. So that's been nice. When and if we go to in person, that may be a problem. But yeah, that I think that's a good thing, is to leave it flexible enough. I mean, we basically try to match, as you all know, we try to match the expertise of the reviewer with the programs that they're looking at without having it a one-on-one necessarily relationship, because otherwise, at a CSU Long Beach, we're going to have 35 people, and that's just not doable. So we try to find somebody, if they have, let's say, multiple single subject and bilingual background. So we try to have that one person review those 3 programs, if possible. That's a lot for a reviewer, but we try to balance the need for the expertise and, not overwhelming having a gigantic team. And that's challenging, especially when you have an institution that has maybe teacher librarian, school nurse, PPS. And so really distinct areas of expertise. That's when the teams get very large.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, my experience from the inside and being on the teams and also on the COAs, I think there's been a good balance that you've done in finding people to serve what the needs are. Have there been any comments at all from recent comments from the review teams as far as how they feel their workload has been? I mean, obviously some of the other ones, some are huge, but I mean, just in general, have they felt that it's been a pretty good assigning of roles and delineation of responsibilities?
I don't think we have had any feedback on that or complaints on that. We do, survey our team members as well as the team leads. We have not been able to look at those surveys for this year yet, and we'll be delving into that very soon. And we hope to bring that to you in October as well. So, just some of the general comments.
Sure. Thank you.
So great discussion. Anything else before we move on to chapter 14? Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you. All right, the other chapter that we're bringing to you, much smaller, much less sort of substantive changes, is chapter 14. And chapter 14 is the chapter on that talks about how we evaluate the accreditation system. So again, the changes here are pretty minor, but intended mostly to be a little more inclusive of sort of all of the activities that we do, including adding more language on page 1 around how often BIR training occurs, because we do that several times a year now. It's not, just once a year. How often we do the calibration for our team leads, what that involves, and the fact that, additional training can be provided as needed. And we have done that occasionally if we've, needed to, at times reviewers have to take a break. Maybe they're on sabbatical. Maybe, they've moved to another institution and they want to get their feet under them. And when they come back into the system, they say, okay, now it's been 2-3 years since I've done a site visit. I need a little extra support, a refresher. And so we're always happy to do that for those folks. Then at the top of page 2, we updated the section there to be a little more inclusive of all of the people that we do gather feedback from. So not just the program sponsors, as it previously said, but as Cheryl was just mentioning, surveys for the institutions, their programs, team leads, team members, the commission consultants. Everybody fills out a survey after these site visits, and we get all of that information and all of those perspectives from those surveys that Cheryl and I both will look at, and as she said, we'll bring to you. So that's just updating all of the various people, the different constituencies that we interview, or I'm sorry, that we survey to get feedback from. And then as we move through the rest of the document, it just adding in the fact that programs also have common standards review. For whatever reason, that this chapter was only referencing program review and annual data collection. Some of the common standards review was missing. So added that in where that was appropriate, and also added in a reference to initial institutional approval alongside IPR and site visits and BIR trainings. So not substantive, mostly just to be a little more inclusive.
Comments or discussion from committee or from the public? Okay, this is an information item, so thank you to Ms. Hickey and Ms. Sullivan, and to our consultants, Mr. Boyd and Ms. Gutierrez, for all your work on this. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 19. And this is a public comment. Does any member of the public have anything it wishes to say? Do we have any members?
No public comments.
Okay, so no public comment at this time. Is there anything else from our staff or any committee members before we move to adjourn? Okay, having no further business, I adjourn the August 2022 meeting of the Committee on Accreditation. Our next meeting of the committee will be October 27th and 28th of 2022. Thanks everybody for your time, and thanks again to the staff for all your work and making this easy for us. Have a great start to your school year if you haven't started yet.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Happy Friday's Eve.
October.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.